My daughter-in-law pushed me down the stairs from the second floor and walked away saying, "Maybe now you will learn your lesson." My son just stood there and challenged me, asking, "You think anyone will believe you, old man? It is your word against ours." I lay there in pain, unable to move, but before I passed out, I made one quick call. What happened next changed everything. Before I tell you how I destroyed them, please like and subscribe to hear more stories about justice served. My name is Winston Carter, and at 72 years old, I never imagined my life would end at the bottom of a staircase in the very house I built with my own hands. I was a structural engineer for 40 years. I know how to build things that last. I know how to create foundations that can withstand earthquakes and hurricanes. But I failed to see the cracks in my own foundation, the one person I should have been able to trust, my only son, Darius. It happened on a Tuesday evening in Atlanta. The humidity was clinging to the windows, but inside the air was freezing. Darius and his wife Tiffany had cornered me on the second-floor landing. I was backed against the mahogany railing I had sanded and stained myself 30 years ago when my late wife Beatrice was still alive. Darius was waving a stack of papers in my face, his hands shaking not from fear, but from a greedy desperation that made him look ugly. "Sign the papers, Dad," Darius shouted, his voice cracking. "It is a sure thing. The crypto market is bouncing back and this new coin is going to the moon. We just need the liquidity. The house is just sitting here gathering dust. We sell it, we invest, and we triple the money in 6 months. Then we buy you a nice condo in Florida." I looked at my son, a 40-year-old man who still dressed like a teenager and thought like a gambler. He had never held a steady job for more than 2 years. He had burned through his savings, his credit, and now he wanted to burn through my legacy. "I am not selling this house, Darius," I said, my voice calm but firm, the voice of a man who used to command construction sites with hundreds of workers. "Your mother and I built this home. It is paid off. It is the only thing I have left of her. And I am certainly not selling it to fund another one of your digital gambling addictions." Darius looked at his wife for help. Tiffany stepped forward. She was a small woman with blonde hair and expensive tastes that she could not afford. She looked at me with eyes that were cold and dead. She had never liked me. To her, I was just an obstacle, a stubborn old black man sitting on a pile of gold she felt entitled to. "Listen to me, Winston," she snapped, dropping the pretense of calling me Dad. "We are drowning here. We need this money. You are just one old man living in a 5-bedroom house. It is selfish. It is disgusting. You are nothing but a useless freeloader in your own home while your son suffers." A freeloader. The word hung in the air. I looked at the woman who had lived under my roof rent-free for 3 years, who ate my food and drove a car I paid the insurance on. I snatched the papers from Darius's hand. The deed transfer. The power of attorney. The documents that would strip me of everything I worked 50 years to achieve. I looked them in the eye and I tore the papers in half. Then I tore them again. I threw the confetti of their broken dreams onto the floor. "Get out," I said, pointing down the stairs. "Both of you, pack your bags. I am done supporting you. I want you out of my house by tomorrow morning." That was the moment the atmosphere shifted. It went from desperate to dangerous. I saw the rage flare in Tiffany's eyes. It was a primal, violent thing. She stepped closer, invading my personal space, her perfume cloying and suffocating. "You are kicking us out," she screamed, her face inches from mine. "After everything we do for you, we take care of you, we tolerate you. And you think you can just throw us on the street?" "You do not take care of me," I corrected her, stepping back toward the stairs. "I take care of you. But that ends now." Tiffany lunged. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a stumble. She extended her arms and shoved me with every ounce of strength she possessed. I was 72. I was strong for my age, but I was not ready for a physical attack. I felt my feet leave the floor. For a split second I was weightless, suspended in the air above the 15 oak steps that led down to the foyer. I saw Darius's face. He didn't reach out to grab me. He didn't scream. He just watched. Then gravity took over. I hit the first step with my shoulder. I heard a crack that sounded like a dry branch snapping, but I knew it was my collarbone. I tumbled uncontrollably. The world became a blur of spinning wood and pain. My hips slammed against the banister. My head bounced off the edge of a step. I rolled and crashed all the way down, landing in a heap on the hardwood floor of the entryway. Silence. For a moment there was only silence. Then the pain hit me like a freight train. A white-hot agony in my left leg, which was twisted at an unnatural angle. My chest felt like it was caved in. I tried to breathe, but my ribs were broken. I tasted copper in my mouth. Blood. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed by the shock and the trauma. My vision was swimming in and out of focus. I looked up the stairs. From my vantage point on the floor, they looked like giants standing at the top of a mountain. Darius was looking down at me, his mouth open, his eyes wide. Tiffany stood beside him, breathing heavily, smoothing her blouse as if she had just finished a mild workout. "Oh my God," Darius whispered. "Tiffany, you pushed him. You just pushed him. Shut up!" she hissed, slapping his arm. Her voice carried down the stairs, echoing in the large, empty house. "Shut up, Darius," he slipped. "Do you hear me?" He slipped. I tried to speak to call for help, but only a groan escaped my lips. "Look at him," Tiffany said, pointing down at me with disgust. "He is broken, Darius. Look at that leg. He is 72. People his age don't recover from falls like that." "Call 911, Darius said, his voice trembling. "We have to call an ambulance." "Wait." Tiffany grabbed his arm. "Think for a second, you idiot. Just think. If he survives this, he kicks us out. We are homeless. We are bankrupt. But if he is incapacitated, if his mind is gone from the head trauma, or if he doesn't make it." Darius looked at her horrified, but I saw the hesitation. I saw the gears turning in his weak mind. He looked at me, his father lying broken on the floor, and then he looked at his wife, who was offering him a way out of his debts. "He is old," Tiffany whispered loud enough for me to hear. "It was bound to happen eventually. We just need to get our story straight before we call." He was confused. "He has been forgetting things lately, right? He wandered to the stairs and lost his footing. We tried to catch him, but we were too late." Darius looked down at me again. Our eyes met. I pleaded with him silently. I begged him with my gaze to be the man I tried to raise, to be a human being. "You think anyone will believe you, old man," Darius said softly, his voice changing, hardening. "It is your word against ours. And who is going to believe a senile old man over his grieving son and daughter-in-law?" He turned away. He turned his back on me. "Let's go to the bedroom to find the insurance papers," Tiffany said, pulling him away from the stairs. "We need to know what the policy covers before the paramedics get here. Give it 5 minutes, just to be sure." They walked away. They left me there to die. I lay on the cold floor, feeling the life draining out of me. The pain was becoming distant, replaced by a cold numbness creeping up my limbs. I knew I only had moments of consciousness left. They thought they had won. They thought I was just a helpless old retiree. But they forgot who I was. I was Winston Carter. I was the man who designed the structural integrity of the Metro City Bank Tower. I was a man who planned for every disaster, every collapse, every failure point. And I had planned for this. With my good arm, I reached into the inside pocket of my house jacket. It was a struggle. Every movement sent spikes of agony through my shattered ribs. My fingers brushed against the cold plastic of my secret weapon. It wasn't a smartphone. They tracked smartphones. It was an old Nokia, a burner phone, a brick, charged and hidden for emergencies. Not emergencies like a fire, but emergencies like betrayal. I pulled it out, my thumb hovering over the keypad. I didn't need to dial a number. I had one contact on speed dial. Key number 1. I pressed and held the button. I put the phone to my ear, praying the battery still held a charge. 1 ring, 2 rings. Winston. The voice on the other end was sharp alert. It was Cohen, Saul Cohen, my lawyer, my best friend, and the only man on earth who knew where the bodies were buried. "Why are you calling on this line?" I tried to speak, but blood bubbled in my throat. I swallowed it down, forcing the words out through the pain. "Cohen," I wheezed. My voice was a wet rattle. "Protocol Omega." There was a pause on the other end, a heavy silence. Cohen knew what that meant. We had drafted Protocol Omega 10 years ago when I first realized Darius was stealing from my wallet. It was the nuclear option, the scorched earth policy. Protocol Omega. Cohen repeated, his voice losing all warmth, turning into pure steel. "Are you sure, Winston? Once we start this, there is no going back. It destroys everything." "They pushed me," I whispered, tears finally leaking from my eyes, not from pain, but from the heartbreak of saying the words out loud. Tiffany pushed me down the stairs. Darius watched. "They are letting me bleed out, Cohen. They just killed me." I heard the sound of a chair scraping against a floor on the other end of the line. I heard keys jingling. "Hang on," Winston, Cohen said. "I am dispatching the private ambulance service. They are on my payroll, not the city's. They will be there in 6 minutes. Do not close your eyes. And Winston, yes, I breathed my vision tunneling into darkness. I am freezing the accounts right now. By the time they check their balances, they will be poorer than the beggars on the street. Stay alive, old friend. Stay alive so you can watch them burn. The phone slipped from my hand. I heard footsteps upstairs. They were coming back probably to check if I was dead yet so they could make their fake emergency call. I closed my eyes, letting the darkness take me. But as I drifted away, I didn't feel fear. I felt a cold, hard satisfaction. They thought they had pushed an old man down the stairs. They didn't realize they had just pulled the pin on a grenade, and I was going to be the explosion. Consciousness returned to me not as a flood, but as a slow, agonizing drip. The first thing I registered was the sound, the rhythmic, mechanical beeping of a machine that was doing the breathing my shattered ribs refused to do. Then came the smell, that sharp, sterile scent of antiseptic and floor wax that only exists in places where people come to die. I tried to open my eyes, but my eyelids felt like they were weighted down with lead. My mouth tasted like cotton and old pennies. I was thirsty enough to drink from a puddle. I tried to move my hand to signal for water, but a bolt of lightning shot from my shoulder down to my fingertips. The pain was absolute. It was a white-hot clarity that cut through the fog of whatever drugs they had pumped into my veins. I gasped and my eyes flew open. The light was blinding. Fluorescent tubes hummed overhead, casting a sickly pallor over everything. I blinked, trying to bring the world into focus. I was in a hospital room. Tubes ran from my arms. My leg was suspended in a sling. I felt trapped, buried alive in clean white sheets. Then I saw the uniforms. 2 police officers stood at the foot of my bed. One was young with a notepad. The other was older with tired eyes. My heart leaped. The police. Cohen had done it. My lawyer had sent the cavalry. I was safe. I was going to tell them everything. I was going to tell them about the push, the stairs, the betrayal. But then I heard the voice. It was a sound that made my blood run cold even under the thermal blankets. It was a high-pitched, trembling wail of distress. "Officer, you have to understand he has not been himself for months. We tried to keep him off the stairs. We installed gates. We watched him like a hawk. But he can be so stubborn." I turned my head, ignoring the scream of protest from my neck muscles. Tiffany was there. She was standing next to the older officer, clutching a tissue to her nose, her eyes red and puffy. She was wearing a modest gray cardigan I had never seen before. She looked like the picture of a devoted, exhausted daughter-in-law. She looked like an angel of mercy. Darius stood beside her, looking at the floor, his hands clasped in front of him like a penitent schoolboy. She pushed me. The words formed in my mind clear and loud, but when they left my mouth they were nothing but a garbled slur. My jaw was wired shut. My tongue felt swollen to twice its size. She pushed me. I tried again, forcing the air through my teeth. Tiffany gasped and grabbed the officer's arm. "Oh God, he is awake. Look at him, he is so confused. It breaks my heart to see him like this." The older officer stepped forward. "Mr. Carter, can you hear me? I am Officer Miller. We are just here to get a statement about the accident." It was not an accident. I focused every ounce of my will on my eyes, trying to burn the truth into the officer's mind. I shook my head as much as the neck brace would allow. "Not. Accident," I managed to hiss. "Pushed. She. Pushed." The officer frowned. He leaned in closer, his pen hovering over his notepad. "What was that, sir?" "Did you say pushed?" "Yes. Yes." Hope flared in my chest. He was listening. But before I could repeat it, a white coat stepped into my line of vision. It was a doctor I did not recognize. He was young with slicked back hair and an air of arrogance that usually accompanies a medical degree obtained with family money. He checked the monitors, ignoring my desperate stare. "Officer, I would not put too much stock in anything he says right now," the doctor said, dismissively flipping through a chart. "Mr. Carter has suffered a severe traumatic brain injury. We are seeing significant swelling in the frontal lobe. I am not crazy." I tried to shout, but it came out as a moan. "You see," the doctor continued, pointing at me as if I were a specimen in a jar. "Confabulation is very common with these types of injuries. The patient's brain tries to fill in the gaps of memory loss, often creating paranoid narratives to explain the trauma. Combined with the early onset dementia the family told us about, it is a classic presentation." Dementia. The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. I felt the cold grip of panic. I did not have dementia. I was Winston Carter. I could calculate the load-bearing capacity of a steel beam to the 3rd decimal point in my head. I could recite the building codes of Atlanta backward. My mind was the only thing I had left and they were trying to take it from me. I do not have dementia. I rasped, my eyes locking onto Darius. Tell them, Darius. Tell them I am sharp. Tell them about the chess games. Tell them. Darius finally looked up. His eyes met mine, and for a second I saw the shame there. I saw the little boy I had taught to ride a bike. I saw the teenager I had bailed out of trouble. I saw my son. Tell them, son. I pleaded with my eyes. Darius took a deep breath. He looked at the police officer, then at the doctor, and finally at his wife. Tiffany did not look at him. She just squeezed the tissue in her hand, her knuckles white. It was a silent command. My father Darius said, his voice trembling slightly, has been struggling lately. He forgets where he is. He gets aggressive. He thinks people are stealing from him. Last week he accused the mailman of being a government spy. Liar, you traitorous liar. The betrayal hit me harder than the floor had. My own son, the flesh of my flesh. He was standing there erasing my sanity to save his own skin. He was burying me alive. That is not true, I roared inside my head, but the sound that came out was an animalistic cry of frustration. I tried to sit up to reach for the officer to grab his uniform and force him to listen. The doctor stepped in immediately, pressing me back down by my shoulders. Nurse, he is agitating. We need to sedate him before he hurts himself further. No, do not touch me. I am the lead engineer of the Skyline project. I designed the foundations of this very hospital. I know more about structure and stability than you ever will. My mind is a fortress, but my body was a ruin. The nurse moved quickly, injecting something into my IV line. I felt the cold rush of the sedative moving up my arm. My limbs grew heavy. The fight began to drain out of me. Officer Miller closed his notebook. He looked at me with pity. That terrible, condescending pity that society reserves for the old and the broken. I am sorry for your trouble, folks, he said to Tiffany and Darius. It is a tragedy. My own mother went through the same thing. Alzheimer's is a beast. We will file this as an accidental fall. No further investigation needed. No, I tried to say. No investigation. That is what they want. Look at her eyes, officer. Look at the greed. But my tongue was heavy. The room was starting to spin. Thank you, officer. Tiffany sniffled. We just want to take him home and make him comfortable. We just want to take care of him. The police officers left. The doctor followed them, murmuring about dosages and recovery times. The nurse checked the machines one last time and stepped out, leaving the door slightly ajar. I was alone with them. The silence in the room changed instantly. The air grew heavy and suffocating. The performance was over. The curtain had fallen. Tiffany stopped crying. It was like watching a switch flip. She dropped the tissue into the trash can with a casual toss. She straightened her spine and smoothed the front of that ridiculous gray cardigan. She walked over to the side of my bed. She looked down at me. There was no pity in her eyes now. There was no sadness. There was only a cold, hard triumph. A shark looking at a seal that had stopped trashing. Darius stayed by the door, unable to come closer, unable to look at the wreckage of his father. Tiffany leaned in. Her face was inches from mine. I could smell her perfume, that expensive floral scent she bought with my money. You should have just signed the papers, Winston, she whispered. Her voice was low, a hiss meant only for me. I glared at her, fighting the fog of the sedative. I wanted to spit in her face. I wanted to curse her. But I was trapped in my own body. You think you are so smart, she continued, running a manicured fingernail along the metal rail of the bed. You think you are so powerful with your big house and your engineering degrees. But look at you now. You are just a drooling old man in a diaper. She laughed softly. It was a dry, soulless sound. And do not think about trying that again. Telling the police. Trying to talk. You saw what happened. No one believes you. You are the crazy old man who falls downstairs. We are the loving family who saves him. She glanced at the door to make sure no one was watching, then she reached out and patted my cheek. It was a slap disguised as a caress, stingingly hard. You are done, Winston. You are a cripple now, and you belong to us. We are going to take you home and we are going to put you where you belong, and you are going to sign whatever we put in front of you, because if you don't, well, stairs can be very dangerous places. Accidents happen all the time. Darius made a small noise from the doorway. A whimper. Tiffany, sweetheart, maybe we should go, he said, his voice weak. Tiffany didn't look away from me. She held my gaze, daring me to challenge her. We are leaving, she said. But your father needs to understand his new reality. She leaned in one last time, her lips brushing my ear. You lost, old man. Game over. She pulled back, flashing me a bright, dazzling smile that didn't reach her eyes. Then she turned and walked out of the room, her heels clicking on the linoleum floor. Darius followed her like a shadow, casting one last terrified glance in my direction before disappearing into the hallway. I was left alone in the humming silence of the hospital room. The sedative was pulling me down, dragging me into the black water of unconsciousness. I replayed the scene in my mind. The doctor's arrogance, the officer's indifference, Darius's betrayal, Tiffany's threat. They thought I was broken. They thought I was senile. They thought because my legs were shattered and my ribs were crushed that my spirit was crushed too. I closed my eyes. I remembered the blueprints of the suspended bridge I designed in '92. Everyone said the span was too long. They said the wind shear would tear it apart. They said it was impossible. I did the math. I reinforced the tension cables. I added dampeners to the pylons. I built it and it stood. It survived a hurricane the following year. I am Winston Carter. I do not break. I withstand. Tiffany was right about one thing. I was a cripple now. I was trapped. But she was wrong about the game being over. The game had just begun. I let the darkness take me, but I held on to one thought, one burning ember of rage in the cold ash of my pain. Cohen. I had made the call. Protocol Omega was active. They were celebrating their victory, dancing on my grave while the fuse was already burning beneath their feet. Sleep, old man, I told myself. Heal. Let them think they have won. Let them get comfortable. Let them bring you home to their little prison. Because a prison works both ways. It keeps the prisoner in, but it also keeps the enemy close. And when I woke up, I would be ready. I would be the wind shear. I would be the hurricane, and I would tear their house of cards down around their ears. 3 days later, I was discharged. It was too soon. My leg was encased in a heavy plaster cast from ankle to hip. My ribs were taped so tight I could barely draw a shallow breath. My head still throbbed with a dull, rhythmic ache that made the world tilt on its axis every time I moved. But Tiffany was insistent. She argued with the hospital administrators with a ferocity that mimicked concern. She claimed the hospital environment was confusing me, making my dementia worse. She said I needed the comfort of my own home. The ride home was silent. Darius drove his eyes fixed on the road, refusing to look at me in the rearview mirror. Tiffany sat in the passenger seat, texting furiously on her phone. I sat in the back, strapped in like a prisoner being transferred between facilities. I looked out the window at the streets of Atlanta, the city I had helped build, the skyline I had altered with my own designs. Now I was just cargo. When we pulled into the driveway of the house on Sycamore Street, a wave of nausea hit me. This was the house Beatrice and I had built 40 years ago. We had laid the bricks. We had planted the dogwood trees. It was supposed to be my sanctuary. Now as I looked at the dark windows, it looked like the mouth of a beast waiting to swallow me whole. Darius got the wheelchair from the trunk. It was a cheap, rusted thing, probably bought at a thrift store. He helped me into it, his hands clammy and trembling. Careful, I grunted as he jostled my broken leg. Just get him inside. Darius, Tiffany snapped, not even looking up from her phone. We have a schedule. Darius wheeled me up the ramp. We entered the foyer. I looked at the spot on the floor where I had landed. The blood had been cleaned up, but I could still see the ghost of the stain on the hardwood. I looked up the stairs, the 15 steps that had almost been my death sentence. I expected Darius to wheel me to the living room where we had set up a temporary bed years ago when I had knee surgery, or perhaps to the guest room on the first floor. But he didn't turn left toward the living room. He turned right toward the kitchen and the narrow door that led downstairs. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice raspy. "My room is upstairs, or the guest room." "You cannot do stairs," Dad, Darius mumbled, pushing the door open. "It is not safe." The smell hit me first. Damp earth, stale air, mildew. It was the smell of the basement. "No," I said, gripping the wheels. "Not down there. It is freezing. It is unfinished." "It is for your own good," Winston Tiffany said, appearing behind us. She locked the front door and dropped the keys into her purse. "We cannot have you wandering around hurting yourself again. The basement is secure. It has a bathroom. It is perfect for you." Darius pushed. I tried to resist, but I was weak. My broken body betrayed me. The wheelchair bumped over the threshold and we began the descent. This time I was not falling, but the feeling of dread was exactly the same. They had cleared out my old workspace. My drafting table was gone. My blueprints, my awards, my engineering books, all gone. In their place was a single metal cot with a thin mattress, a plastic folding table, and a bucket. It was not a room, it was a cell. The concrete floor was cold. I could feel the chill seeping through the plaster of my cast. There were no windows except for one small rectangular slit high up near the ceiling at ground level that looked out onto the driveway. "Get him in the bed," Tiffany ordered. Darius manhandled me onto the cot. The pain in my ribs flared white-hot and I cried out. He didn't apologize. He just backed away, wiping his hands on his pants as if I were something dirty. "This is inhumane," I wheezed. "You cannot keep me here. This is my house." "It is our house now," Tiffany said. "And you are just a guest who needs supervision." She stepped aside and a woman I had not seen before walked out of the shadows of the utility room. She was large with forearms like tree trunks and a face that looked like it had been carved out of granite. She wore scrubs that were 2 sizes too small and smelled of stale cigarette smoke and cheap hairspray. "This is Brenda," Tiffany announced. "She is your new caretaker. She is going to make sure you stay put. She comes highly recommended, by which I mean she is cheap and she does not ask questions." Brenda looked me up and down, chewing on a piece of gum with a slow bovine rhythm. "So this is the troublemaker," she said, her voice like gravel. "Do not worry, Mrs. Carter. He won't give you any problems. I know how to handle the difficult ones." She stepped forward and held out a meaty hand. "Phone," she demanded. I instinctively clutched my chest pocket, but it was empty. My smartphone was gone. I realized with a jolt that I had left it on the bedside table in the hospital. Or maybe Tiffany had taken it while I slept. But then I remembered. The burner phone. The Nokia. Cohen had told me to keep it safe. I had taped it to the inside of my thigh under the hospital gown before they put the cast on. It was currently encased in plaster, inaccessible but safe. "I do not have a phone," I lied. "Check him," Brenda said to Darius. Darius patted down my jacket and my pants pockets. He found my wallet. He took it out and handed it to Tiffany. She opened it, took out the cash and the credit cards, and tossed the empty leather wallet back onto my lap. "Clean." Brenda grunted. "Good," Tiffany said. She looked around the bleak basement room and smiled. "Comfortable, cozy, just what you deserve." She turned to leave. Darius followed her, not looking back. "Lock it up, Brenda," Tiffany commanded. Brenda walked to the heavy wooden door at the top of the stairs. She looked down at me one last time. "Do not yell pops," she warned. "Nobody is going to hear you. And if I have to come down those stairs because you are making a racket, you are not going to like it." She slammed the door. I heard the heavy thud of a deadbolt sliding into place. Then silence. I was alone. Buried alive in the foundation of my own life. I lay on the cot, shivering. The temperature in the basement was at least 10 degrees colder than the rest of the house. I pulled the thin, scratchy blanket up to my chin. My mind was racing. Protocol Omega was active. Cohen was working, but I was trapped in a concrete box with no way to communicate. Hours passed. The small rectangle of light from the high window moved across the floor, marking the time. I tried to calculate the load bearing of the ceiling beams above me just to keep my mind sharp. I tried to focus on the geometry of the shadows. Then the noise started. It began with a heavy thud directly above my head. Then the screech of something heavy being dragged across the floorboards. Then the sound of shattering glass. They were upstairs. They were destroying my home. I closed my eyes and listened. I knew every squeak of those floorboards. I knew exactly where they were. They were in the master bedroom, Beatrice's room. I heard a crash that sounded like wood splintering. "That is the vanity," Tiffany's voice was muffled but audible through the floor vents. "It is hideous. Get rid of it." "No," I whispered into the darkness. "Not the vanity. I had built that vanity for Beatrice for our 10th anniversary. It was solid cherry wood with hand-carved rose details." "Trash it," Tiffany screamed. "And get those dusty old clothes out of the closet. I want this room empty by tonight. The painters are coming tomorrow." I heard the sound of hangers clattering. I heard the heavy thud of bags hitting the floor. They were throwing away Beatrice's clothes, her Sunday dresses, the silk scarf she wore on our honeymoon, the smell of her lavender perfume that still lingered in the fabric. They were treating it like garbage. Tears streamed down my face, hot and angry. This was worse than the physical pain. This was a violation of my soul. They were erasing us. They were scrubbing 40 years of history to make the house a blank canvas for some stranger to buy. "Hey, Brenda," yelled from the top of the stairs. "Shut up down there." I hadn't realized I was sobbing. I bit my knuckle until I tasted blood, forcing myself to be silent. I could not give them the satisfaction. I could not let them know they were breaking me. The noise continued for hours, dragging, smashing, the sound of a dumpster being loaded in the driveway. Then late in the afternoon, the light in the basement changed. The sun was setting, casting long orange beams through the high window. I dragged myself up to a sitting position. The pain in my leg was a dull roar. I needed to see. I needed to know what was happening out there. I pulled the plastic table over to the wall under the window. It was flimsy, but it would have to hold. I used my good leg to stand leaning heavily against the rough concrete wall. I was gasping for breath, sweat pouring down my face. I peered out through the dirty glass. The view was limited, just the tires of cars and the lower half of people standing in the driveway. I saw a dumpster overflowing with black bags. I saw the leg of my cherry wood vanity sticking out broken and scarred. Then a car pulled up. It was a black Lincoln Town car. Pristine, polished, imposing. My heart leaped. I knew that car. I knew the license plate. Cohen. He was here. He had come for me. I watched as the driver's door opened. Cohen stepped out. He was wearing his signature charcoal suit, his silver hair perfectly combed. He looked like a shark in a sea of minnows. He walked up the driveway with purpose. He stopped at the front door, which was out of my view, but I could hear the knocker. 3 sharp raps. I tried to shout, "Cohen, I am here. I am down here." But the window was sealed shut, painted over years ago, and my voice was weak, muffled by the glass and the concrete. I pounded on the glass with my fist, but the sound was pathetic, a dull thud that wouldn't travel 3 feet. Then I saw Tiffany's legs appear in the driveway. She had come out to meet him. She blocked his path to the door. I pressed my ear against the cold glass, straining to hear. Mr. Cohen, Tiffany's voice was sickly sweet, dripping with false politeness. What a surprise. Mrs. Carter Cohen's voice was ice. "I am here to see my client. I have reason to believe he is in distress." "Oh, heavens, no." Tiffany laughed, a light tinkling sound that made my skin crawl. "Winston is fine. Actually, he is better than fine. We decided that the city was too stressful for his recovery." "Where is he?" Cohen demanded, taking a step forward. "We moved him this morning," Tiffany lied smoothly. "To a wonderful facility in Florida, Sunny Meadows. It is beautiful. He is already settled in. He specifically asked not to be disturbed for a few weeks while he adjusts. Doctor's orders, Florida." She was telling him I was hundreds of miles away while I was standing 6 feet below her boots. "I need the address," Cohen said. "I need to verify this." "Of course," Tiffany said. "I will text it to you. But really, Mr. Cohen, you should respect his privacy. He was very clear. He does not want to see anyone, especially lawyers. He wants peace." She stepped forward, her body language aggressive, blocking him from the house. "He is confused," she added, lowering her voice. "The dementia, you know. It has progressed so fast. He might not even recognize you." Cohen stood there for a long moment. I could see his polished shoes shifting on the pavement. He was suspicious. I knew he was suspicious. He was looking at the house, scanning the windows. "Look down, Cohen," I begged silently. "Look down at the ground." But he was looking up at the bedroom windows. He didn't see the dirty slit of glass at his ankles. "Very well," Cohen said finally. "But tell him this. Tell him Protocol Omega does not sleep, and neither do I." He turned on his heel and walked back to his car. "No," I screamed, my voice cracking. "Do not leave. Cohen, come back." I pounded the glass until my knuckles bruised. He got into the car. The engine started. The black Lincoln backed out of the driveway and disappeared down the street. Tiffany stood there for a moment watching him go. Then she looked down at the dumpster at the broken vanity and laughed. I slid down the wall, collapsing back onto the cot. The darkness of the basement swallowed me. I was alone. Truly alone. But as I lay there listening to the sound of Brenda snoring upstairs, a cold resolve settled in my chest. Cohen hadn't given up. His last words were a message. Protocol Omega does not sleep. He knew something was wrong. He was just regrouping. And I had seen something else through that window, something Tiffany hadn't noticed. Before Cohen got back in his car, he had paused. He had taken a business card from his pocket and dropped it on the ground right next to the dumpster. It wasn't littering. Cohen never littered. It was a breadcrumb. I wasn't going to Florida. I was right here. And sooner or later I was going to find a way to pick up that card. The heavy wooden door at the top of the stairs creaked open and a slice of yellow light cut through the gloom of my basement prison. I squinted against the sudden brightness. My eyes had adjusted to the perpetual twilight of the slit window and the single naked bulb that Brenda only turned on when she brought me my daily ration of watery soup. Heavy footsteps descended the stairs. It wasn't Brenda's lumbering gait. It was quick and patient. Darius. He stormed into my makeshift cell, bringing with him the smell of expensive cologne and the dust of the demolition happening upstairs. He was holding a clipboard and a pen. He looked manic. His eyes were wide. His tie was loosened and sweat beaded on his forehead despite the air conditioning humming through the vents. "Wake up, old man," he barked, kicking the leg of my metal cot. The vibration traveled up the frame and exploded in my shattered leg. I gasped, clutching the thin blanket, my knuckles turning white. The pain was a living, breathing thing that lived in my marrow now. It was the only constant companion I had. "What do you want, Darius?" I rasped, my voice sounding like dry leaves scraping together. "I haven't had water in hours." "I don't care about your water," Darius snapped. "I need a signature, right now." He thrust the clipboard into my face. I blinked, trying to focus. It was a power of attorney document. A durable, unrestricted power of attorney. It would give him complete control over everything. My bank accounts, my investments, my medical decisions. It was the key to the kingdom. "I am not signing that," I said, letting my head fall back onto the thin pillow. Darius laughed. It was a nervous, high-pitched sound. "Oh, you are signing it, Dad. Because if you don't, I am going to tell Brenda to stop giving you the pain meds." I froze. The threat hung in the damp air, heavy and suffocating. The pain medication was the only thing keeping me from screaming myself hoarse. It was the only thing allowing me to drift into fitful sleep. Without it, the agony of my broken femur and crushed ribs would be absolute torture. "You wouldn't," I whispered, looking at the man I had raised. "Try me," Darius hissed, leaning down so his face was inches from mine. "I am done playing nice. I have contractors upstairs who need to be paid. I have investors waiting. I need access to the main accounts, and I need it today. So you are going to sign this, or you are going to spend the next 24 hours wishing you were dead." I looked into his eyes. I searched for a shred of humanity, a flicker of the boy who used to cry when he scraped his knee. But there was nothing. Just greed and a terrifying desperation. He was a junkie looking for a fix, and money was his drug. "Give me the pen," I said, my voice trembling. He smiled, a cruel, victorious smile. He handed me the pen and held the clipboard steady against my chest, pressing down on my broken ribs. I winced, but I didn't cry out. I took the pen in my shaking hand. My fingers felt clumsy and stiff. I looked at the signature line, Winston J. Carter. I knew something Darius didn't. I knew that Protocol Omega was already running. I had initiated it with that single phone call to Cohen before I blacked out. But Darius didn't know that yet. He hadn't tried to access the deep vaults yet. He was just scratching the surface. Protocol Omega. I remembered the day I designed it 10 years ago. It wasn't a legal document. It was a structural failsafe, like the dampeners in a skyscraper designed to lock everything down in the event of a catastrophic seismic event. I had built my wealth on redundancy and security. When I realized Darius was becoming a liability, when I saw the first signs of his gambling and his entitlement, I went to Cohen. We created a shadow trigger. If I ever gave the signal, every asset I owned would go into a hard freeze, not just a bank hold, a federal lock. The accounts would flag any attempt at access as potential fraud and trigger an immediate investigation by the IRS and the FBI. It was a self-destruct button for my liquidity, but I needed to sell the performance. I needed him to believe he had won, so he would walk right into the trap. I let my hand hover over the paper. I feigned a spasm, jerking the pen. I can't. It hurts," I stammered. "Just sign it, you useless old fool," Darius screamed, grabbing my wrist and forcing it down onto the paper. I let him guide my hand. But as the pen touched the paper, I made a subtle change. My legal signature, the one on file with every bank and institution, ended with a sharp upward loop on the R of Carter, a flourish I had developed in drafting school. Instead, I let the pen drag. I flattened the loop. I made the signature look shaky, weak, and crucially incorrect. To the naked eye, it looked like the scrawl of a sick old man. To a forensic accountant or a bank teller comparing it to my signature card, it was a forgery. A bad one. "There," I whispered, dropping the pen. Darius snatched the clipboard. He didn't even look at the signature. He just saw ink on the line. Finally, he muttered, "See? Was that so hard?" He turned on his heel and ran up the stairs, taking them two at a time. He was rushing to his doom. I listened to the door slam. I listened to his footsteps fading down the hallway. Then I heard the front door open and close. He was going to the bank. He was going to the branch on Piedmont Road, the one where he thought he could bully the tellers. I lay back in the darkness and waited. The pain in my leg throbbed in time with my heartbeat, but for the first time in days, I welcomed it. It was the rhythm of the clock ticking down. I closed my eyes and pictured the scene. Darius walking into the bank chest, puffed out clipboard in hand. He would demand to see the manager. He would slam the power of attorney on the desk. He would ask for a cashier's check for $50,000 to pay the contractor. The manager, Mr. Henderson, would take the paper. He would look at the signature, then he would look at his screen. And that was when the alarm would go silent. Protocol Omega didn't just freeze the money. It flagged the user. When Darius tried to access that account, his name would be entered into a database monitored by agencies that didn't care about family disputes. I visualized the digital walls slamming down around my son, the red lights flashing on the screen, the polite confusion of the teller. "I am sorry, sir, there seems to be a system error. Please wait one moment." The wait. The sweat starting to form on his upper lip. The realization that the card wasn't working. The growing panic. I lay there for an hour, then 2. The silence in the basement was heavy, pregnant with anticipation. Then I heard it. The front door slammed so hard the whole house shook. Dust drifted down from the ceiling beams. Heavy, frantic footsteps pounded across the floorboards above me. Darius was home. He didn't walk to the basement door. He ran. He threw the bolt back with a violence that sounded like a gunshot. The door flew open and banged against the wall. He came down the stairs, stumbling, tripping over his own feet in his haste. He looked deranged. His tie was gone. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His eyes were wild, terrified, and furious. He didn't just walk into the room. He launched himself at the metal bars of the cot, kicking the frame with all his might. "What did you do?" he screamed, his voice breaking into a hysterical shriek. "What did you do, old man?" I opened my eyes slowly, feigning confusion. "Darius, what?" Don't play dumb with me," he roared. "I went to the bank. I tried to transfer the money for the roofers. Do you know what they told me? Do you know what the screen said?" I stayed silent, letting his panic fill the room. "It said frozen due to criminal investigation," Darius yelled. "Criminal investigation, Dad. They cut up my card. They called security. I had to run out of there before the police arrived." He paced the small room, grabbing his hair, pulling at it. "How did you do it? You have been in this hole for a week. You don't have a phone. You don't have internet. How did you lock the accounts?" I looked at him. I saw the fear behind the anger. He wasn't just mad about the money. He was scared. He owed people money. Dangerous people. And now his piggy bank had just snapped shut on his fingers. I pushed myself up on my elbows, wincing as my ribs protested. I looked him dead in the eye. My voice wasn't raspy anymore. It was cold, structural. "I told you, Darius. I told you I built this house, and I know how to demolish it." He stared at me, mouth open. For the first time since he pushed me down the stairs, he realized he wasn't looking at a victim. He was looking at the architect of his destruction. "Fix it," he pleaded, his anger suddenly collapsing into desperation. "Fix it, Dad. You have to call them. Tell them it is a mistake. Tell them I have permission." "I can't," I said softly, lying back down. "I am just a senile old man, remember? Nobody listens to me." Darius let out a sound of pure frustration, a guttural scream that echoed off the concrete walls. He kicked the door frame one last time, splintering the wood. "You are going to rot down here," he spat. "You are going to rot until you fix this." He ran back up the stairs and slammed the door, plunging me back into darkness. But this time the darkness didn't feel like a prison. It felt like a bunker. And outside, the war had just begun. The silence in the basement following Darius's retreat was not peaceful. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of a bomb squad waiting for the timer to hit 0. I lay in the dark, counting the cracks in the ceiling, my leg throbbing in a steady rhythm that felt like a countdown. I knew exactly where Tiffany was. Before Darius had stormed out to the bank earlier that morning, I had heard her on the phone booking an appointment at the most exclusive boutique in Buckhead. She needed a new dress for the open house, she said. She needed to look like the lady of the manor. She needed to project wealth, to attract wealth. I closed my eyes and allowed myself a moment of pure, cold visualization. I knew Tiffany's habits better than she knew herself. I knew she would sweep into the store like she owned it, demanding champagne, snapping her fingers at the assistants. She would pile dresses on the counter, silk and velvet armor for her hollow soul. She would choose the most expensive one, not because it fit, but because of the price tag. Then she would reach into her purse. She would pull out the platinum card. The card that had my name on the account and hers as an authorized user. The card I had paid off every month for 5 years to keep the peace. I imagined the swipe, the pause, the polite frown of the cashier. "I am sorry, ma'am." It was declined. The indignation. "Try it again. It is a platinum card." The second swipe. The manager stepping in. The quiet phone call to the bank. And then the sound that would shatter her world. The snip of scissors. I didn't have to imagine it for long. 2 hours after Darius had fled my cell, the front door exploded open again. But this time it wasn't the heavy stomping of my son. It was the click-clack of high heels moving so fast they sounded like hail on a tin roof. "Darius," she screamed. Her voice was shrill, hysterical, vibrating with a humiliation so deep it sounded like physical pain. "Darius, where are you?" I heard running footsteps upstairs. "I am here, baby. I am in the kitchen," Darius yelled back, his voice still shaking from his own encounter at the bank. "What is wrong?" "They cut them up," Tiffany shrieked. She sounded like she was throwing things. I heard a purse hit the floor hard. "They cut them up, Darius. All of them. The platinum, the gold, even the emergency visa." I pulled myself closer to the vent, pressing my ear against the cool metal. This was it, the second wave. "What are you talking about?" Darius asked. I was at the register. Tiffany was sobbing now, hyperventilating. I had $3,000 worth of clothes on the counter. There were people watching Darius. The mayor's wife was right behind me. And the girl, that little shop girl. She told me the bank ordered a confiscation. She took scissors and she cut my cards in half right in front of everyone. She said it was a fraud alert. She said I was a thief. "Security escorted me out," she wailed. "Security, Darius." Like I was a shoplifter. I lay in the dark and allowed a grim smile to touch my lips. Protocol Omega was a masterpiece. It didn't just stop the money. It scorched the earth. It flagged every associated user as a potential risk. "It is Dad," Darius said, his voice dropping to a terrified whisper that carried perfectly through the vents. "He did something. My account is locked too." "What do you mean your account?" Tiffany snapped, her sobbing stopping, instantly replaced by cold panic. "Your personal account. The one he puts your salary in." "Locked," Darius said. "I checked online. It says 0 balance. Available funds, 0. Pending investigation." "0." Tiffany screamed. "But we have the mortgage due on the condo. We have the car payments. We have the caterers for the open house coming tomorrow. How can it be 0? "He shut us down," Darius said. "He somehow shut us down from the basement." They were silent for a moment, the weight of their reality crashing down on them. They were broke, not just cash poor, but destitute, exposed. Then I heard the footsteps, 4 feet moving in unison. They were coming for me. The door to the basement flew open again. They didn't bother with the lights. They descended into the gloom like avenging spirits. Darius grabbed the front of my shirt and hauled me up. The pain in my ribs was blinding, a white-hot spike that made me gasp, but I didn't cry out. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. "What did you do, old man?" Tiffany hissed, getting in my face. Her mascara was running. Her eyes were wild. "Fix it. Call the bank right now and tell them it is a mistake." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had pushed me down the stairs, who had left me to die, and I saw nothing but a desperate child throwing a tantrum. "I can't," I wheezed. "Don't lie to me." Darius shook me and my head snapped back, rattling my teeth. "You did this. You froze the accounts." "I tried to tell you," I said, my voice weak and raspy, perfectly mimicking the confusion of the senile man they wanted me to be. "I tried to tell you before. I am not the owner anymore." "What are you talking about?" Tiffany demanded, grabbing my face and forcing me to look at her. "You built this fortune. It is your name on the checks. It is a trust. I lied." The lie was smooth practiced. It was a variation of the truth designed to confuse them. I put everything in a blind trust years ago. To protect it. I am just a beneficiary. I get an allowance. "And why did it stop?" Darius yelled. "Why is my money gone?" "Because of the investigation," I whispered. What investigation? Tiffany asked, her voice trembling. The system. It detects unusual activity. I improvised, leaning into the role of the helpless old man. Large withdrawals, attempts to change power of attorney. It thinks I am being coerced. It thinks I am in danger, so it locks everything. It is automatic. I can't stop it. Stop. Only the trustees can. Who are the trustees? Darius demanded. Who controls my money? I don't know, I said, letting my head loll to the side. A firm in New York. Or maybe London. I forget. My head hurts, Darius. I can't remember. He dropped me back onto the cot. I groaned, clutching my side. He is useless, Tiffany spat, pacing the small room. He is senile. He locked himself out of his own money. He probably forgot the passwords years ago and just let the system run. We are screwed, Darius said, sitting heavily on the plastic chair, burying his face in his hands. We have zero liquidity. We have creditors who are going to break my legs if I don't pay them by Friday. And now we can't even access the inheritance. He looked at me with pure hatred. You old fool. You protected the money so well you lost it. I lay there and let them believe it. It was better this way. If they thought I was a mastermind, they might kill me just to stop me. But if they thought I was an incompetent old man who had accidentally nuked his own fortune, they would scramble. They would make mistakes. We need cash, Tiffany said, suddenly stopping her pacing. Her eyes were hard, calculating. We need cash now, today, from where Darius asked. We can't use the cards. The house, Tiffany said, turning slowly to look at the slit window. This house. It is the only asset not tied to the trust yet. The deed is still in his name, physical paper. We have the forgery guy. We can transfer the deed. But the market, Darius said. A sale takes months. We don't have months. We don't need the market, Tiffany said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. We need a shark. We need a cash buyer, someone who doesn't ask questions, someone who buys as is. You mean a flipper? Darius asked. Like Slithers. Mr. Slithers. I knew the name. Everyone in Atlanta construction knew Mr. Slithers. He was a predator. He bought properties from desperate people, widows, and debt heirs who needed quick drug money. He paid 50 cents on the dollar in cash, and he didn't care about inspections or titles. He was a bottom feeder. Call him, Tiffany ordered. Tell him we have a mansion in Buckhead, 5 bedrooms, historic details. Tell him we are motivated sellers. Tell him we will take 50% of market value if he brings a suitcase of cash tonight. No, I gasped, struggling to sit up. Not the house, not Slithers. He will gut it. Shut up, old man, Darius snapped. You lost your vote when you lost the bank accounts. He pulled out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen. He is going to do it, Tiffany said, a cruel smile returning to her face. He is going to call Slithers, and we are going to sell this place out from under you. We will get the cash, we will leave you here for the new owner to deal with, and we will be in Mexico before anyone realizes the title was forged. She leaned down closer to my face again. You thought you could starve us out, she whispered. You thought you could cut off the supply. But you forgot one thing, Winston. We are survivors, and we will burn this whole legacy to the ground if it keeps us warm. Darius put the phone to his ear. Mr. Slithers, he said, his voice taking on a desperate, ingratiating tone. I have a deal for you. A once-in-a-lifetime deal. Cash only. Tonight. Yes. Yes, the owner is incapacitated. It is all ours. I closed my eyes. They were going to sell my home to a criminal for pennies. They were going to destroy Beatrice's memory for a quick getaway. But as Darius negotiated the price of my life, I felt a strange calm settle over me. They were panicking. They were rushing, and rushing led to mistakes. They were bringing a shark into the tank. They didn't realize there was already a killer whale waiting in the deep. Bring him, I thought. Bring Mr. Slithers. Bring the cash. Bring the contracts. Because Protocol Omega wasn't just a lock. It was a trap, and they were about to walk right into the jaws of it. The basement felt colder after Slithers left. The silence wasn't just the absence of noise. It was the heavy, suffocating pressure of a countdown. 48 hours. 1,728 minutes until my home. The physical embodiment of 40 years of sweat and love was signed away to a vulture in a polyester suit. I lay on the cot, staring at the exposed beams of the ceiling above me. I knew every knot in that wood. I knew the load-bearing capacity of every joist. I had designed this house to withstand storms, but I hadn't designed it to withstand the rot from within. My stomach growled, a painful cramping reminder that I hadn't eaten since the watery soup Brenda had thrown at me yesterday. Thirst was a constant companion, now a dry sandpaper sensation at the back of my throat. They were weakening me, starving the fight out of me. But hunger has a way of sharpening the mind. It strips away the unnecessary and leaves only the primal. Survival. Revenge. I heard movement upstairs, the heavy rhythmic thud of Brenda's footsteps. She was pacing, back and forth in the kitchen. I could hear her muttering the low, angry rumble of a person who feels cheated. Cheap witch, I heard her say through the vent. 3 weeks and not a dime. Tomorrow, Brenda. When the check clears, Brenda. I got rent too. I smiled in the darkness. My leverage was ripening. I reached under the mattress and touched the jagged shard of ceramic I had broken from the toilet tank lid. It was sharp, cold, and deadly, a primitive tool for a sophisticated problem. But it wasn't for violence. Not yet. I waited until the house settled. Tiffany and Darius had gone out, probably to spend the last of their credit on appearances for the party or to beg for extensions from their creditors. The house was quiet except for the TV blaring in the kitchen where Brenda was stationed. I needed to get her down here, but I couldn't just yell. Yelling was what the old crazy Winston would do. I needed to be the rich, lucid Winston. I took the ceramic shard and scraped it against the metal leg of the cot. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Rhythmic, deliberate. Not the sound of distress, but the sound of something being worked on. The TV volume lowered. The footsteps stopped. "What are you doing down there?" Brenda hollered. I didn't answer. I just kept scraping. Scritch, scritch. The door at the top of the stairs yanked open. I said, "Cut it out." "You trying to dig a tunnel?" Brenda stomped down the stairs. Her face flushed with irritation and cheap wine. She loomed over me, hands on her hips. "You want me to tie you to that bed, old man? Because I will." I stopped scraping. I turned my head slowly and looked her in the eye. I didn't look at her with fear. I looked at her with assessment. "Brenda?" I said, my voice calm, devoid of the rasp I usually feigned. "How much does she owe you?" Brenda blinked, taken aback by the sudden clarity in my tone. "What, Tiffany? My daughter-in-law. How much back pay does she owe you?" Brenda scoffed, looking away. "None of your business." 3 weeks, I calculated, at, what, 15 an hour under the table. So, let's say, $2,000. Brenda's eyes narrowed. "She's paying me tomorrow, after the sale." "No, she isn't," I said softly. "She's broke, Brenda. Her cards are cut, her accounts are frozen. The only money she's getting is from the sale on Saturday. And do you really think you're at the top of her list? She's going to Mexico. You're going to get nothing." Brenda went still. The truth of my words hit her. She knew Tiffany. She knew the type. "Shut up," she muttered, but there was no heat in it. Just worry. I slowly raised my left arm. I pulled back the sleeve of my dirty flannel shirt. The Rolex Submariner gleamed in the dim light. It was battered scratches on the crystal from years on construction sites, but the gold was real and the movement was Swiss perfection. Brenda's eyes locked onto it. "Do you know what this is?" I asked. "A watch," she said. "It's a 1970 Rolex Submariner," I corrected. "Vintage. Collector's item. Even in this condition, a pawn shop would give you 5,000 cash, no questions asked. A collector would give you 15. Brenda licked her lips. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I'm a businessman, Brenda, and I'm making you an offer." I unclasped the watch. The click echoed in the silence. I held it out, letting it dangle from my finger. "This watch for a ride," I said. Brenda took a step back, shaking her head. "No way. I ain't breaking you out. That's kidnapping or something. And you can't walk. How am I supposed to get you out without them seeing?" "I don't need a ride for me," I said. "I need a ride for the watch." She frowned, confused. "What, I need you to take this watch to an address in downtown. A law office. Cohen and Associates." I recited the address from memory, a sequence of numbers and streets burned into my brain. "You walk in, you ask for Saul Cohen, you give him this watch, and you tell him one sentence." "What sentence?" she asked, stepping closer, her hand reaching out but not touching the gold yet. "You tell him, 'The Hawk has a broken wing in the basement.'" Brenda hesitated. Her eyes darted to the stairs, then back to the watch. "That's it. Just drop it off and say the weird code. That's it. You keep the watch until you hand it to him. If he doesn't pay you double what it's worth for the delivery, you can keep it. But he will pay. He'll give you cash on the spot. It was a gamble, a massive one. Cohen would recognize the watch immediately. He knew I never took it off. It was the signal, the proof of life. Brenda looked at the watch. $5,000, maybe more. Versus a promise from Tiffany that was worth less than the air it was spoken on. She snatched the watch from my hand. Her grip was rough, greedy. "If this is fake, I'm coming back down here and I'm breaking your other leg," she hissed. "It's real," I said, lowering my arm, feeling the strange lightness of my wrist. "Go now, before they get back." She shoved the watch into her scrub pocket. She looked at me one last time, a mixture of pity and contempt on her face. "You're crazy, old man. Just go," I commanded. She turned and ran up the stairs. I listened. I heard her grab her purse. I heard the back door open and close. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. She was gone. My message was out in the world. But now the fear set in. Would she actually go to Cohen? Or would she drive to the nearest pawn shop, cash out, and disappear with a bottle of whiskey? I lay in the dark, the silence pressing in on me. My stomach clawed at my spine. My throat burned. I closed my eyes and prayed. Not to God, but to greed. I prayed that Brenda's greed would lead her to the man who could pay the most. That night, nobody came to check on me. No soup, no water. Tiffany and Darius returned late, drunk and loud, arguing about seating arrangements for the party. They didn't even notice Brenda was gone. I was alone in the dark, hungry, thirsty, and unarmed. But for the first time since the fall, I wasn't helpless. The hawk was grounded, but the signal was flying. The basement felt colder after Slithers left. The silence wasn't just the absence of noise, it was the heavy, suffocating pressure of a countdown. 48 hours. 1,728 minutes until my home. The physical embodiment of 40 years of sweat and love was signed away to a vulture in a polyester suit. I lay on the cot staring at the exposed beams of the ceiling above me. I knew every knot in that wood. I knew the load-bearing capacity of every joist. I had designed this house to withstand storms, but I hadn't designed it to withstand the rot from within. My stomach growled, a painful, cramping reminder that I hadn't eaten since the watery soup Brenda had thrown at me yesterday. Thirst was a constant companion now, a dry sandpaper sensation at the back of my throat. They were weakening me, starving the fight out of me. But hunger has a way of sharpening the mind. It strips away the unnecessary and leaves only the primal. Survival. Revenge. I heard movement upstairs. The heavy, rhythmic thud of Brenda's footsteps. She was pacing, back and forth in the kitchen. I could hear her muttering the low, angry rumble of a person who feels cheated. "Cheap witch," I heard her say through the vent. 3 weeks and not a dime. Tomorrow, Brenda. When the check clears, Brenda. I got rent too. I smiled in the darkness. My leverage was ripening. I reached under the mattress and touched the jagged shard of ceramic I had broken from the toilet tank lid. It was sharp, cold, and deadly. A primitive tool for a sophisticated problem. But it wasn't for violence. Not yet. I waited until the house settled. Tiffany and Darius had gone out probably to spend the last of their credit on appearances for the party or to beg for extensions from their creditors. The house was quiet except for the TV blaring in the kitchen where Brenda was stationed. I needed to get her down here, but I couldn't just yell. Yelling was what the old crazy Winston would do. I needed to be the rich, lucid Winston. I took the ceramic shard and scraped it against the metal leg of the cot. Scritch. 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 Rhythmic. Deliberate. Not the sound of distress, but the sound of something being worked on. The TV volume lowered. The footsteps stopped. "What are you doing down there?" Brenda hollered. I didn't answer. I just kept scraping. Scritch. Scritch. The door at the top of the stairs yanked open. I said, "Cut it out." "You trying to dig a tunnel?" Brenda stomped down the stairs, her face flushed with irritation and cheap wine. She loomed over me, hands on her hips. "You want me to tie you to that bed, old man? Because I will." I stopped scraping. I turned my head slowly and looked her in the eye. I didn't look at her with fear. I looked at her with assessment. "Brenda," I said, my voice calm, devoid of the rasp I usually feigned. "How much does she owe you?" Brenda blinked, taken aback by the sudden clarity in my tone. "What?" "Tiffany. My daughter-in-law. How much back pay does she owe you?" Brenda scoffed, looking away. "None of your business. 3 weeks, I calculated. At What? 15 an hour. Under the table. So let's say $2,000. Brenda's eyes narrowed. She is paying me tomorrow, after the sale. No, she isn't, I said softly. She is broke, Brenda. Her cards are cut. Her accounts are frozen. The only money she is getting is from the sale on Saturday, and do you really think you are at the top of her list? She is going to Mexico. You are going to get nothing. Brenda went still. The truth of my words hit her. She knew Tiffany. She knew the type. Shut up, she muttered, but there was no heat in it. Just worry. I slowly raised my left arm. I pulled back the sleeve of my dirty flannel shirt. The Rolex Submariner gleamed in the dim light. It was battered scratches on the crystal from years on construction sites, but the gold was real, and the movement was Swiss perfection. Darius had looked at it once when he was looting my jewelry box. Old junk, he had sneered, tossing it back. He wanted flashy. He wanted diamonds. He didn't understand value. Brenda's eyes locked onto it. Do you know what this is? I asked. A watch, she said. It is a 1970 Rolex Submariner, I corrected. Vintage. Collector's item. Even in this condition, a pawn shop would give you 5,000 cash, no questions asked. A collector would give you 15. Brenda licked her lips. Why are you showing me this? Because I am a businessman, Brenda. And I am making you an offer. I unclasped the watch. The click echoed in the silence. I held it out, letting it dangle from my finger. This watch for a ride, I said. Brenda took a step back, shaking her head. No way. I ain't breaking you out. That is kidnapping or something. And you can't walk. How am I supposed to get you out without them seeing? I don't need a ride for me, I said. I need a ride for the watch. She frowned, confused. What? I need you to take this watch to an address in downtown. A law office. Cohen and Associates. I recited the address from memory, a sequence of numbers and streets burned into my brain. You walk in, you ask for Saul Cohen, you give him this watch, and you tell him one sentence. What sentence? She asked, stepping closer, her hand reaching out but not touching the gold yet. You tell him, the hawk has a broken wing in the basement. Brenda hesitated. Her eyes darted to the stairs, then back to the watch. That is it. Just drop it off and say the weird code. That is it. You keep the watch until you hand it to him. If he doesn't pay you double what it is worth for the delivery, you can keep it. But he will pay. He will give you cash on the spot. It was a gamble, a massive one. Cohen would recognize the watch immediately. He knew I never took it off. It was the signal, the proof of life. Brenda looked at the watch. $5,000, maybe more, versus a promise from Tiffany that was worth less than the air it was spoken on. She snatched the watch from my hand. Her grip was rough, greedy. If this is fake, I am coming back down here and I am breaking your other leg, she hissed. It is real, I said, lowering my arm, feeling the strange lightness of my wrist. Go now, before they get back. She shoved the watch into her scrub pocket. She looked at me one last time, a mixture of pity and contempt on her face. You are crazy, old man. Just go, I commanded. She turned to run up the stairs, but suddenly she froze. The front door upstairs opened. Voices drifted down. You are sure you locked the back? Tiffany's voice sharp and accusatory. Yes, I locked it, Darius replied, sounding exhausted. Why are you always on my case? Brenda's eyes went wide. She was trapped on the stairs. If Tiffany saw her coming out of the basement now, she would ask questions. She would search her. She would find the watch. Brenda looked at me in panic. Hide, I mouthed, pointing to the space behind the door. Brenda pressed herself against the wall in the shadows of the landing. Tiffany's heels clicked across the hardwood floor above. She stopped right at the top of the basement stairs. Brenda, she called out. I held my breath. My heart was hammering against my broken ribs. If Brenda spoke now, if she gave me up to save herself, it was over. Brenda. Where are you? Tiffany yelled again. I need you to clean the guest bathroom. Brenda didn't move. She stayed in the shadows, her hand clutching the pocket with the watch. Then miraculously, the sound of a toilet flushing came from the upstairs hallway bathroom. Oh, there you are, Tiffany said, assuming Brenda was in the bathroom. When you are done, check on the old man, make sure he hasn't died. We need him alive until Saturday. I heard Tiffany walk away. Brenda let out a shuddering breath. She didn't look back at me. She scrambled up the last few steps, opened the door, just a crack, slipped through and closed it softly. I listened. I heard her heavy footsteps moving toward the back door, not the bathroom. I heard the distinct click of the kitchen latch. I heard the door open and close. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. She was gone. My message was out in the world. But now the fear set in. A cold, gnawing dread that was worse than the pain in my leg. Would she actually go to Cohen? Or would she drive to the nearest pawn shop, cash out, and disappear with a bottle of whiskey? She was a woman who worked for cash under the table. She had no loyalty, only need. And if she sold the watch, Cohen would never know. He would think I was in Florida. He would think I had given up. I lay in the dark, the silence pressing in on me. My stomach clawed at my spine. My throat burned. That night, nobody came to check on me. No soup, no water. Tiffany and Darius returned late, drunk and loud, arguing about seating arrangements for the party. They didn't even notice Brenda was gone, or maybe they thought she had just left for the night. I was alone in the dark, hungry, thirsty, and unarmed. I had given away my only leverage. I closed my eyes and tried to picture Cohen sitting in his mahogany office. I tried to picture Brenda walking in, slamming the watch on his desk. The hawk has a broken wing. Fly. Brenda, I whispered into the darkness. Fly fast, because the vultures are circling and I don't know how much longer I can play dead. Saturday night arrived, not with a bang, but with the smooth, sophisticated notes of jazz saxophone drifting down through the floorboards. The house above me was vibrating with life. I could hear the rhythmic clacking of high heels on the hardwood, the murmur of dozens of voices blending into a cocktail of expensive laughter and networking. The smell of roasted garlic and rosemary focaccia seeped through the vents, mocking the empty, hollow ache in my stomach. It was the night of the open house, the night my legacy was to be sold for parts. I lay on my cot in the dark, staring at the single sliver of light coming from under the heavy wooden door at the top of the stairs. My leg throbbed, a constant dull agony that spiked into white-hot lightning every time I shifted my weight. My cast was filthy gray with dust and grime from the basement floor. My shirt, the same one I had worn the day I fell, was stiff with dried sweat and blood. I smelled like a caged animal. I smelled like despair. But my mind was clear, sharper than it had been in years. Hunger had burned away the fog. Pain had forged my resolve into steel. I reached under the thin mattress and pulled out my salvation. It wasn't a phone. It wasn't a weapon. It was a 6-inch Phillips head screwdriver with a yellow handle. I had found it 3 days ago, kicked under the utility sink in the corner covered in cobwebs. It was a tool I had bought 20 years ago, part of a set I used to teach Darius how to fix a leaky faucet. He had hated it. He had complained the whole time that he didn't want to be a handyman. Now that same tool was going to dismantle his lies. I listened to the voices upstairs. I could distinguish them now. Oh, Winston is absolutely loving Europe. Tiffany's voice floated down clear and bright as a bell. She was standing right above me, probably in the kitchen near the basement door. We just FaceTimed with him this morning. He is in Tuscany right now. The wine, the cheese. He said he might never come back. A ripple of polite laughter followed. It is so good that he is enjoying his retirement, a man's voice said. Probably Mr. Slithers or one of the other sharks circling the water. Yes, Darius chimed in, his voice smooth, confident, completely devoid of the terror he had shown in this very room days ago. He told us to go ahead and sell. He wants to buy a villa there. He said this house is just too big for him now. He wants us to be happy. Liar. You soulless thief. I gripped the screwdriver until my knuckles turned white. They were erasing me. They weren't just stealing my property, they were rewriting my existence, turning me into a happy ghost sipping wine in Italy while I rotted in their dungeon. It was time. I rolled off the cot. The impact of my good knee hitting the concrete sent a jolt through my body, but I gritted my teeth and swallowed the groan. I dragged my broken leg behind me, the heavy plaster cast scraping softly against the floor. I crawled toward the stairs. The basement door was solid oak. I had installed it myself. It was heavy, soundproof, and locked from the outside with a deadbolt. There was no way to pick it, no way to break it down, not in my condition. But I knew a secret about doors, a secret every builder knows. Security is an illusion if the mechanics are exposed. The door opened inward into the basement. That meant the hinges were on my side. I pulled myself up to the first step, then the second. I had to drag my dead weight up the steep wooden stairs using only my arms. My broken ribs screamed in protest, a sharp stabbing pain that made my vision blur. I paused, gasping for air, sweat stinging my eyes. Just 10 more, I whispered to myself. Upstairs, the music swelled, a piano melody. My piano, the one Beatrice used to play on Sunday mornings. They were using her music to sell her home. The rage gave me a fresh burst of strength. I hauled myself up another step, then another. My fingernails dug into the wood. Splinters pierced my skin, but I didn't care. I reached the top landing, a small square of wood right in front of the door. I was exhausted. My heart was hammering against my bruised chest like a trapped bird. But I was there. I pulled the screwdriver from my pocket. I reached for the bottom hinge. The paint was thick layers of white latex that had sealed the metal over the years. I used the tip of the driver to score the paint to break the seal. Scritch. I froze. Had they heard it? Upstairs, the party roared on, glasses clinking, laughter. Nobody heard the rat scratching at the door. I fit the head of the screwdriver into the top of the hinge pin. I needed a hammer. I didn't have one. I looked around. Nothing but the bare landing. I took off my left shoe, my good shoe. It was a sturdy leather loafer. It would have to do. I placed the driver tip against the pin and struck the handle with the heel of my shoe. Thud. The pin didn't move. It was rusted shut, fused by time and humidity. Please, I prayed. Please hold. I hit it again. Harder. Thud. A flake of rust fell. The pin moved a millimeter. I worked methodically. Hit. Wiggle. Hit. Wiggle. My arm burned. The awkward angle made my ribs fire with agony. But slowly, agonizingly, the pin began to rise. 1 inch. 2 inches. I pulled it out with my fingers and set it gently on the floor. 1 down. 2 to go. The middle hinge was easier. It popped out with a few solid strikes. But the top hinge was a nightmare. I had to pull myself up to a standing position, balancing on my good leg, leaning my weight against the door to reach it. If I slipped, if I fell backward, I would tumble down the entire flight of stairs and break my neck. I wedged the screwdriver in. I hammered. My vision was swimming. The heat in the small enclosed stairwell was stifling. Upstairs, I heard a voice I recognized. "So when can we sign the papers?" Slithers asked. His voice was oily, eager. "I have the cash in the car." "Tonight," Darius replied. "Right now. We just need to make a toast first. To new beginnings." They were toasting. They were raising glasses of champagne paid for with my stolen money to celebrate my destruction. I struck the pin with a fury I didn't know I possessed. Thack! It shot out and clattered onto the floor. The door was unhinged. It was now just a heavy slab of wood held in place by the deadbolt and friction. I dropped the shoe. I dropped the screwdriver. I didn't need them anymore. I leaned my shoulder against the hinge side of the door. I pushed. It groaned. The wood scraped against the frame. I needed leverage. I wedged my fingers into the crack where the hinges used to be. I pulled. I pushed. I summoned every ounce of strength from my structural engineer's shoulders, from the muscles built by 40 years of lifting steel and concrete. The door shifted. The latch side pivoted on the deadbolt, creating a gap of light. The sounds of the party flooded in loud and clear. The smell of perfume and expensive candles hit me. I put my good foot against the wall behind me and shoved the door with everything I had. With a loud screech of tearing wood, the door frame gave way. The heavy oak door swung inward askew, hanging by the lock before crashing down onto the landing with a thunderous boom that shook the floorboards. Silence. Instant, absolute silence fell over the house. The piano player stopped mid-key. The laughter died in throats. I lay on top of the fallen door, gasping for air, my cast thumping against the wood. I was exhausted, broken. But I wasn't done. I crawled. I crawled out of the dark hole of the stairwell and into the blinding light of the hallway. I dragged myself across the polished hardwood floor. My fingernails scratched the varnish. My cast left a trail of gray dust. I reached the archway that led to the living room. I gripped the frame and pulled myself up. It took forever. My legs shook. My breath came in ragged, wheezing gasps. But I stood. I stood there, leaning against the wall, a specter from the grave. I looked into the living room. It was packed. 50 people. Neighbors I had known for decades. Business associates of Darius. Friends of Tiffany. They were all holding crystal flutes of champagne frozen in tableaus of horror. And in the center of the room stood my family. Tiffany was wearing a silver sequined dress that shimmered under the chandelier. She looked like a disco ball. She was holding a bottle of Dom Perignon, her mouth frozen in a perfect O of shock. Darius was in a tuxedo. He looked handsome, successful. until you looked at his eyes, which were bulging out of his head. Mr. Slithers stood by the fireplace, a briefcase open on the table in front of him, stacks of cash visible inside. They all stared at me. They saw the gray beard matted with soup and sweat. They saw the bruises on my face turning yellow and purple. They saw the torn flannel shirt stained with blood from where the screwdriver had slipped and cut my hand. They saw the filthy cast on my leg, the toes swollen and blue. I smelled the collective gasp of the room, the scent of shock. Tiffany dropped the champagne bottle. It hit the floor and shattered, spraying foam and glass over her expensive shoes. The sound broke the spell. "Oh my God," someone whispered. Is that Winston?" I took a step forward. I didn't need a cane. I was held up by pure, unadulterated rage. I looked at Darius. I looked at Tiffany. I cleared my throat. It sounded like gravel in a blender. "Enjoying the party?" I asked. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried to every corner of the silent room. Darius took a step back, knocking over a vase of white lilies. "Dad," he stammered. "Dad, you are supposed to be in Europe," I finished for him. "I know. The wine is terrible in the basement, Darius. Very dry." Tiffany recovered first. Her survival instinct was faster than her shame. She rushed forward, her hands outspread, a look of frantic concern plastered onto her face. "Oh, Winston," she cried, her voice shrill and trembling. "Oh, my poor Winston, he has escaped again. Ladies and gentlemen, please excuse us. My father-in-law, he is very sick. He wanders. He gets confused." She tried to grab my arm to pull me away, to hide me. "Do not touch me," I roared. I swung my arm and knocked her hands away. The force of it made me stumble, but I caught myself. "I am not confused, Tiffany," I spat. "And I am not wandering. I live here, in the basement, where you locked me up." A murmur went through the crowd. People were backing away, putting down their drinks. "He is having an episode," Darius shouted, addressing the guests, desperate to salvage the narrative. "The dementia. It makes him paranoid. He thinks we are jailers. Please, everyone, just go to the patio. We will handle this." "Call the ambulance," Tiffany yelled to nobody in particular. "He has hurt himself again. Look at him. He is delusional." She turned to Slithers, who was hurriedly closing his briefcase. "Sign the papers," she hissed at him. "Sign them now before he ruins it. It is still valid. He is incompetent." Slithers looked at me. He looked at the filth. He looked at the clarity in my eyes. He shook his head slowly. "I don't think so, lady," he said, backing toward the front door. "This looks like a felony to me. I am out." "No, wait!" Darius screamed, lunging for the briefcase. "You cannot leave. We have a deal." But Slithers was already gone, pushing past the stunned guests. I looked at the room. I saw the faces of my neighbors. Mrs. Higgins from next door, who had brought me casseroles when Beatrice died. Mr. Henderson from the Rotary Club. "Look at me," I said to them. "Look at your friend. Do I look like I am in Tuscany?" Mrs. Higgins stepped forward, her hand over her mouth. "Winston," she whispered. "We thought. They told us you sent postcards." "They lied," I said. "They forged them. Just like they forged my signature on the bank accounts. Just like they are trying to forge the deed to this house." Darius grabbed a heavy candlestick from the mantelpiece. His eyes were manic. He was cornered, a rat in a trap. "Shut up," he screamed, raising the brass weapon. "Shut up, old man, or I will put you back in the ground for good." The guests screamed. The facade was gone. There was no more loving son, only a desperate criminal. I didn't flinch. I didn't back down. I reached into the pocket of my filthy trousers. "Go ahead, Darius," I said softly. "Finish what you started on the stairs. But you should know one thing." I pulled out the burner phone. The Nokia. I held it up. The screen was glowing. A call was connected. Speakerphone was on. "We are not alone," I said. And from the tiny speaker a voice boomed out, amplified by the silence of the room, a voice that sounded like the gavel of God. "This is the Atlanta Police Department. We have the house surrounded. Drop the weapon and put your hands in the air." Darius froze. The candlestick wavered. Then the front door, the real front door, burst open. Blue lights flooded the hallway, and the party was officially over. The scream that tore through the living room did not come from me. It came from Mrs. Higgins, the nice widow from next door who had brought me tuna casseroles after Beatrice died. She was staring at my leg, at the gray plaster cast that was cracked and stained with the filth of the basement. She was staring at my face, which was a map of bruises and dried blood. She dropped her crystal flute, and the sound of shattering glass was the starting gun for the chaos that followed. For a second, the room was a tableau of frozen horror. The jazz music had stopped, but the silence was louder than any melody. It was the silence of a lie being ripped open. Then Tiffany screamed. It was a high, thin sound of pure panic. She looked at me as if I were a corpse that had crawled out of a grave, which in a way I was. She took a stumbling step back, her silver sequined dress catching the light in a way that seemed obscene against the reality of my condition. Darius, however, did not scream. My son, the man who had watched me fall down the stairs and done nothing, possessed a survival instinct that was almost reptilian. He saw the shock on the faces of his investors. He saw the disgust in the eyes of the neighbors. He saw his entire future crumbling, and he decided to double down. He lunged toward me, not to hug me, not to help me, but to block me. He threw his body between me and the guests, spreading his arms wide like a curtain trying to hide a stage disaster. "Oh, Dad!" he shouted, his voice pitching up into a performative wail of concern. "Dad, you escaped. Oh my God, someone call the hospital. He must have walked out." He turned to the crowd, his face a mask of tragic apology. "I am so sorry, everyone," he stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. "My father, his dementia is much worse than we thought. We put him in a specialized facility for his own safety, but he gets these delusions. He thinks he is still living at home. He thinks he is trapped." He looked back at me, his eyes pleading and threatening at the same time. "Dad, come on. Let's get you into the den. You are scaring people. You are confused. You don't know where you are." He reached for me, his hands clamped onto my shoulders. It wasn't a gentle touch. His fingers dug into my bruised flesh hard enough to leave marks. He tried to physically pivot me, to force me away from the center of the room toward the library door. He wanted to hide the evidence. He wanted to shove the monster back into the closet. I planted my good foot. I was 72 years old and I had been starved for a week, but I was built of stern stuff. I locked my knee. I refused to move. "I am not confused, Darius," I said. My voice was low, rasping like a saw cutting through oak, but it carried. "I am not in a facility. I am in the basement, under the kitchen." Darius laughed, a frantic barking sound. "See," he said, looking around the room for allies. "See how confused he is. The basement. Dad, we don't even use the basement. It is full of old boxes. Come on, let's get you sat down. You are dirty. You have soiled yourself." That was the cue for Tiffany. She recovered from her shock, her eyes narrowing as she realized the narrative Darius was spinning. She saw an opening. She moved into the crowd, weaving among the guests like a viper in a garden. I watched her lean in close to Mr. Henderson, the president of the Rotary Club. I saw her whisper in his ear, her hand covering her mouth in mock embarrassment. "He wanders," she whispered loud enough for the people around her to hear. "He gets confused and, well, look at him. He doesn't know how to use the bathroom anymore. He smears things. It is heartbreaking. We tried to keep it private to preserve his dignity." She moved to Mrs. Higgins, touching her arm gently. "Do not get too close, sweetie," she warned. "He can be violent. The dementia makes him aggressive. That is why he is bruised. He hurts himself. He throws himself against walls. We have tried everything." It was a masterclass in assassination. She wasn't killing my body anymore, she was killing my character. She was turning the victim into a monster, a senile animal that needed to be put down or locked away. I saw the faces of my neighbors change. The horror was turning into pity, into revulsion. They were stepping back. They were believing the lie because the lie was easier to accept than the truth. It was easier to believe an old man was crazy than to believe his son and daughter-in-law were monsters. Darius was pushing me harder now, trying to wrestle me toward the door. "Help me!" he shouted to Mr. Slithers. "Help me get him inside before he hurts someone." I felt a surge of adrenaline. They were winning. Even now, with the truth standing right in front of them, they were twisting it. I needed a weapon. As Darius grappled with me, trying to unbalance me, my hand brushed against the surface of the entryway console table. It was the table where we always kept the keys and the mail. But tonight it was being used as a staging area for the party. There were napkins, brochures for the house, and a phone. It wasn't my burner phone. It wasn't the old Nokia. It was a sleek, modern smartphone lying face up on the polished wood. It was connected to a charging cable. I recognized the case. It was blue leather. It was my phone, the one they had taken from me at the hospital, the one they had confiscated to cut me off from the world. And it was unlocked. The screen was glowing, showing the music app. It was the source of the jazz playlist that was currently piping through the expensive Bose speakers hidden in the ceiling of every room in the house. Darius didn't see my hand move. He was too busy trying to cover my mouth with his shoulder to shut me up. I grabbed the phone. My fingers remembered the pattern. I didn't need to make a call. I didn't need to send a text. I needed to access the cloud. I had always been meticulous about backups. Every photo, every video, every voice memo I recorded synced automatically. And the recording I had made on the burner phone, I had forwarded it. I had sent it to my own email as a backup the night I made it just before I hid the Nokia. Darius shoved me hard, and I stumbled back, hitting the wall. The pain in my ribs blinded me for a second, but I held onto the phone like a lifeline. "Get off me!" I roared, swinging my cast like a club to force him back. Darius recoiled, surprised by the ferocity of the blow. I swiped the screen. My thumb hovered over the file. It was an audio file titled "The Fall." Tiffany saw the phone in my hand. Her eyes went wide. "Darius, take it from him," she shrieked, abandoning her whispers. "He's going to break it. Take it!" Darius lunged, but I was faster. I pressed play. The jazz music cut out instantly. The speakers popped with a burst of static, and then amplified to a volume that shook the crystal in the chandelier. A voice boomed through the house. It wasn't my voice. It was Tiffany's. "Maybe now you will learn your lesson." The voice was crystal clear, sharp, and venomous. It echoed off the vaulted ceilings. The room went deathly still. Darius froze mid-lunge, his hand outstretched. Tiffany stopped breathing, her hands flying to her mouth. Then came the sound of a thud, a heavy, wet crunch, the sound of a body hitting wood. "My body. You think anyone will believe you, old man?" That was Darius, his voice sneering, arrogant, echoing from every corner of the room. "It is your word against ours." The guests looked around, confused, terrified. They looked at the speakers, then at Darius, then at me. The recording continued. The sound of groaning, the sound of labored breathing. "Call 911. That was Darius sounding scared. Wait, that was Tiffany, cold and calculating. "Think for a second, you idiot. If he survives this, he kicks us out," Mrs. Higgins gasped. Mr. Henderson dropped his drink. "But if he is incapacitated," Tiffany's voice boomed, filling the room with her malice. "If his mind is gone from the head trauma, or if he doesn't make it, the insurance money will be ours." I looked at Darius. He was shrinking. He was physically deflating. The arrogance, the confidence, the facade of the grieving son, it all evaporated, leaving behind a terrified little boy caught standing over the broken vase. Push the old man down. Say he slipped. The recording ended. The silence that followed was absolute. It was heavy. It was a judgment. I lowered the phone. I didn't need to say a word. The technology I had mastered, the systems I had built, they had spoken for me. I looked at my neighbors. I saw the realization hitting them like a physical blow. They weren't looking at a crazy old man anymore. They were looking at a survivor. And they were looking at Darius and Tiffany and seeing them for the first time. "You," Mrs. Higgins whispered, pointing a trembling finger at Tiffany. "You did that. We heard you." Tiffany shook her head, frantically backing away. No, that is fake. He edited it. He is good with computers. It is AI. It is a deep fake." She was grasping at straws. Desperate, ridiculous straws. "It is not fake, Darius," I said, my voice calm amidst the ruin. "It is the Cloud Sun. You can break my bones. You can lock me in a basement. But you cannot delete the truth." Darius looked at me. His face was gray. He knew it was over. He knew the investors heard it. He knew the neighbors heard it. But then the sound of sirens cut through the night air outside. Not the distant wail from before, but close, loud, right in the driveway. Darius's eyes darted to the front door. He looked at the open briefcase of cash Mr. Slithers had left behind in his haste. He looked at the back door. He was going to run. "Don't even think about it, Darius," I said. But he didn't listen. Panic had taken the wheel. He grabbed the briefcase. "Get out of my way," he screamed at the guests, brandishing the heavy brass candlestick he had snatched from the mantel. "Move or I will kill him. I swear I will kill him." He wasn't talking about me. He was pointing the weapon at Mr. Henderson. The crowd screamed and scattered, diving behind sofas and overturning tables. Darius made a break for the hallway, shoving Tiffany aside. She fell to the floor in her expensive dress, looking up at her husband with betrayal in her eyes. He abandoned her. In the end, when the ship went down, the rats didn't help each other swim. They climbed over each other to breathe. Darius reached the door. He threw it open, ready to sprint into the night to disappear with the cash. But the doorway was blocked, not by darkness, but by a wall of blue uniforms. Officer Miller, the tired policeman from the hospital, stood in the threshold, his gun drawn, his face hard. "Going somewhere, Mr. Carter?" he asked. Darius dropped the briefcase. It hit the floor and popped open, spilling bundles of cash across the entryway like dead leaves. I leaned against the wall, my legs screaming, my ribs burning, and I watched. I watched the end of my family, and I felt nothing but the cold, hard satisfaction of a structure that had held its load. The silence that filled the living room after the recording ended was not empty. It was heavy, suffocating, and absolute. It felt as if the air had been sucked out of the space, leaving a vacuum that pressed against the eardrums of every person present. The jazz music was gone. The laughter was a distant memory. There was only the echo of Tiffany's voice, venomous and cruel, hanging in the rafters like a ghost. I sat on the floor, my back against the wall, my broken leg throbbing in its filthy cast, and I watched them. I watched the blood drain from Tiffany's face. It didn't just fade, it vanished, leaving her skin the color of old parchment. Her lips, usually painted a perfect crimson, were now a pale, trembling line. She looked at the guests, then at Darius, and finally at me. For the first time since I had known her, the mask of the perfect socialite was gone. There was no arrogance left, no sneer of superiority. There was only naked, terrifying vulnerability. She looked like a child who had been caught standing over a broken vase, but the vase was my life, and the pieces were scattered all over the floor for everyone to see. The guests were frozen statues in evening wear. Mr. Henderson held his glass halfway to his mouth, the ice melting against the crystal. Mrs. Higgins had her hands pressed over her mouth, her eyes wide with a mixture of horror and realization. They weren't looking at a confusing dementia patient anymore. They were looking at a crime scene. They were looking at the victim of a brutality they could barely comprehend. The social contract of the party had been shattered. The polite smiles were gone, replaced by the cold, hard stare of judgment. I took a breath. It rattled in my chest, scraping against my healing ribs, but it filled my lungs with a strength I hadn't felt in weeks. I gripped the phone in my hand, my knuckles white. I wasn't done. The recording was just the opening statement. Now it was time for the testimony. I pushed myself up straighter, ignoring the spike of pain that shot up my spine. I looked directly at Tiffany. I locked eyes with her, and I didn't blink. "I am not crazy," I said. My voice didn't tremble. It didn't waver. It boomed. It was the voice of the man who had shouted orders over the roar of jackhammers and cranes. It was the voice of the engineer who had built skyscrapers. It resonated off the high ceilings, filling the room with the authority that made Darius take a stumbling step back. "I am not senile." I continued, my gaze sweeping across the room, making eye contact with every single person who had doubted me. And I certainly did not go to Europe. I have not seen the sun in 14 days. I have not felt the wind on my face. I have not slept in a bed. I pointed a shaking finger at the floor beneath us. "I have been right there, under your feet. While you drank my wine and laughed in my kitchen, I was rotting in the dark. While you planned how to spend my money, I was counting the cracks in the concrete to keep my mind from snapping." I turned my gaze to Darius. He was sweating profusely now, his tuxedo shirt clinging to his chest. He looked like a trapped animal, his eyes darting from the door to the window to me. "I ate your scraps, Darius," I said, my voice dropping to a low growl that vibrated with 40 years of disappointment. "The food you threw away, the stale crusts, the cold soup, that is what you fed the man who put food on your table your entire life. You treated a stray dog better than you treated your own father." A gasp went through the room. Someone dropped a purse. It hit the floor with a soft thud, but nobody looked down. They couldn't take their eyes off me. "You told them I was happy," I said, my voice rising again, fueled by the fire in my gut. "You told them I was sipping wine in Tuscany. You forged postcards. You created a fantasy to cover up a felony. But look at me." I spread my arms wide, displaying the filth, the bruises, the undeniable evidence of my torture. "Does this look like Tuscany to you? Does this broken leg look like a retirement paradise? This is what you did. This is your legacy." Darius looked at the guests. He saw the revulsion in their eyes. He saw Mr. Slithers, the shady investor, backing away toward the shadows, clutching his briefcase. He saw the social standing he craved so desperately turning into dust. He snapped. It wasn't a slow break, it was an instant fracture. The panic that had been building behind his eyes exploded into violence. He realized that the phone in my hand was the anchor dragging him down. He realized that as long as I held it, as long as that recording existed, he was finished. He let out a guttural roar, a sound of pure animalistic rage. "Shut up!" he screamed, spittle flying from his mouth. "Shut up, you crazy old man!" He lunged. He didn't care about the witnesses anymore. He didn't care about the facade. He crossed the distance between us in 2 strides, his hands reaching out like claws. He wasn't seeing his father. He was seeing a threat that needed to be neutralized. "Give me that phone," he shrieked. "Turn it off. You are lying. It is all lies." I didn't move. I didn't try to run. I couldn't run. I sat there anchored by my cast and I braced myself. I saw the madness in his eyes, the intent to harm, the intent to silence me once and for all. He grabbed my wrist. His grip was bruising, desperate. He tried to wrench the phone from my hand. I held on. I clamped my fingers around the device, using every ounce of strength left in my old, battered body. "Let go," he yelled, striking my shoulder with his free hand. "Give it to me." The pain was blinding. My broken collarbone screamed. My ribs felt like they were grinding together. But I didn't let go. I gritted my teeth and stared up at him into the face of the son I had loved, and I saw nothing but a stranger. "You can take the phone, Darius." I grunted through the pain. "But you cannot take the truth. It is already out." He raised his fist. I saw the glint of the heavy gold ring I had bought him for his graduation. He was going to hit me. He was going to beat his crippled father in front of 50 people because he had no other moves left. The guests screamed. Mrs. Higgins shouted for him to stop. Mr. Henderson took a step forward, but he was too far away. Darius's fist came down. I flinched, closing my eyes, preparing for the impact. Boom! The sound wasn't a fist hitting flesh. It was the sound of wood splintering. It was the sound of a heavy oak door being kicked in with a force that shook the entire house. Darius froze his fist, hovering inches from my face. He turned his head toward the entryway. The front door, the massive double doors that had welcomed friends and family for 40 years, stood wide open. One side was hanging off its hinges, and standing in the threshold silhouetted against the flashing blue lights of the night was Judgment Day. It wasn't just one officer. It wasn't a neighborhood patrolman coming to check on a noise complaint. It was a phalanx. 4 police officers in full tactical gear stepped into the foyer, their boots heavy on the marble floor. Their faces were hard, their eyes scanning the room with professional detachment. They brought with them the cold air of the night and the undeniable weight of the law. And in front of them, leading the charge like a general on a battlefield, was Saul Cohen, my lawyer, my friend, my savior. He looked impeccable. His suit was sharp, his tie perfectly knotted, but his eyes were blazing with a fury I had never seen before. He wasn't holding a briefcase. He was holding a piece of paper. A warrant. He looked at Darius, frozen with his fist raised. He looked at Tiffany, cowering by the stairs. And then he looked at me, sitting on the floor in my filth and my blood. Darius Carter. Cohen's voice cut through the room like a gavel. "Step away from him. Now." Darius blinked. He looked at the police. He looked at the gun on the lead officer's hip. He looked back at me. Slowly trembling, he lowered his hand. He took a step back, his hands raising into the air in a gesture of surrender. It is not what it looks like," Darius stammered, his voice small and pathetic. He was having an episode. I was trying to calm him down." "Save it," Cohen said, walking into the room, the officers flanking him. "We heard the recording, Darius. We heard everything." Tiffany let out a sob and collapsed to her knees. It wasn't him, she wailed, pointing a shaking finger at Darius. It was his idea. He made me do it. I was scared. Cohen ignored her. He walked straight to me. He knelt down, heedless of the dust and the grime on the floor. He put a hand on my shoulder. His touch was gentle, firm. "Winston," he said softly. "I got the watch. The hawk is safe." I looked at him, and for the first time in 2 weeks, the tears came. Not tears of pain, but tears of relief. "You took your time, Cohen," I whispered, trying to smile. "Traffic was murder," he replied, his eyes shining. He stood up and turned to the officers. "Officers," he said, pointing at my son and his wife. "I want these 2 arrested immediately. The charges are attempted murder, kidnapping, elder abuse, and grand larceny. And add assault to the list. We all just saw him try to strike his victim." The lead officer nodded. He moved forward, pulling a pair of handcuffs from his belt. The metal clicked ominously. Darius Carter, put your hands behind your back. Darius looked at the cuffs. He looked at the guests who were now watching him with open hatred. He looked at the ruins of his life. But Dad, he whispered, looking at me one last time, I am your son. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had left me in a basement to rot. I don't have a son, I said, my voice cold and final. I have a defendant. The cuffs clicked shut, and the sound was the sweetest music I had ever heard. The sound of the handcuffs clicking shut was final. It was a mechanical sound, cold and precise, that cut through the murmurs of the stunned guests like a knife. Darius stood there, his arms twisted behind his back, his tuxedo jacket bunched up around his shoulders. The arrogance that had defined him for 40 years, the swagger he had worn like a second skin, evaporated in an instant. He looked small. He looked like a child caught wearing his father's clothes. But Darius was not done fighting. He had spent a lifetime manipulating his way out of trouble, and his brain was still scrambling for a loophole, a lie, an exit strategy. He twisted his head around his face, flushing a deep, angry crimson as he shouted at the lead officer. "This is a mistake," he bellowed, his voice cracking with desperation. "You have no jurisdiction here. This is a private residence. This is a family dispute." He looked around the room, his eyes wild, seeking support from the people he had been trying to impress just minutes ago. "Tell them," he pleaded to the crowd. "Tell them my father is sick. Tell them this is just a misunderstanding. This is a family matter. Get out. All of you get out." He tried to shoulder past the officer, to physically force the police out of the foyer. It was a pathetic display. The officer didn't even flinch. He just tightened his grip on Darius' arm, forcing him to stay put. That was when Cohen stepped forward. My lawyer moved with the slow, deliberate grace of an executioner. He walked into the center of the room, placing himself directly between Darius and the door. He held a thick manila folder in his hand. He didn't look at Darius with anger. He looked at him with something far worse. He looked at him with boredom. "It is not a family matter," Darius Cohen said, his voice calm, carrying to every corner of the silent room. "And it is certainly not a misunderstanding." Cohen opened the folder. He pulled out a single sheet of paper and held it up. "This is a crime scene," Cohen continued. "We have evidence of attempted murder. We have evidence of false imprisonment. We have evidence of elder abuse. Those are felonies, Darius. They are not family squabbles. You do not get to call a timeout because you are losing." Darius scoffed, trying to regain some shred of authority. "You are bluffing," he spat. "You are just his senile lawyer. You don't know anything. This is my house. I have the deed. I have the power of attorney. I can sell it if I want. I can kick you out if I want." He turned his head toward Mr. Slithers, who was still lurking near the door, clutching his briefcase like a shield. "Mr. Slithers, tell them," Darius shouted. "We have a verbal contract. The house is sold. Tell them this is your property now." Mr. Slithers looked uncomfortable. He was a man who operated in the shadows, who bought distressed properties for cash and asked no questions. He didn't like police lights. He didn't like witnesses. He shook his head slowly, backing away. "I don't want any trouble," he muttered. "The deal is off." "No," Darius screamed, thrashing against the officer's grip. "The deal is not off." We shook hands. "The house is mine to sell." Cohen laughed. It was a dry, dusty sound. "That is where you are wrong," Darius Cohen said. "That is where you have been wrong for 10 years. Cohen walked over to Mr. Slithers. He handed the paper to the shady investor. "Read the header," Cohen said. "Read the name on the title." Slithers squinted at the document. He adjusted his glasses. He read the line out loud, his voice trembling slightly. "Property of the Winston and Beatrice Carter Irrevocable Trust." The room went silent again. Darius froze. What Darius whispered. Cohen turned back to my son. He took off his glasses and cleaned them slowly, enjoying the moment. "You really should have paid attention to the paperwork, Darius. If you had ever actually cared about your father's work instead of just spending his money, you would have known. Winston transferred the title of this house into an irrevocable trust a decade ago. I watched from my spot on the floor and felt a surge of triumph. I remembered the day I did it. It was after Darius had stolen $500 from my wallet to pay a bookie. I realized then that he wouldn't stop until he picked my bones clean. So I built a wall he couldn't see. Cohen continued, his voice rising with the weight of the law behind it. "Winston does not own this house, Darius, and neither do you. Winston is merely the primary beneficiary with lifetime residency rights. The legal owner is the trust, and the trust is managed by a board of independent overseers." Mr. Cohen pointed a finger at Darius's chest. You have been trying to force your father to sign a deed he does not personally hold. You forged a signature on a sale document for a property you have no legal claim to. Do you know what that is called?" Darius shook his head, mute with shock. "It is called federal wire fraud," Cohen boomed. "It is called grand larceny. It is called title fraud. And since you tried to facilitate the sale across state lines with an out-of-state investor, it puts you in the jurisdiction of the FBI." The color drained from Darius' face until he looked like a ghost. He sagged in the officer's grip, his legs giving out. "No," he whined. "No, that is not true. He told me it was his. I spoke up then from the floor. I told you a lot of things, Darius. I said, my voice raspy but strong. I told you to study. I told you to work hard. I told you to be honest. You didn't listen to any of that either. Why would you start listening now?" Tiffany, who had been sobbing quietly on the stairs, suddenly stood up. Her eyes were darting around the room, calculating, assessing, looking for a lifeboat. She realized the ship had gone down. She realized the inheritance was a myth. There was no house to sell. There was no money to steal. "It is not my fault," she shrieked, pointing an accusing finger at her husband. "He told me he owned it. He told me we were rich. I didn't know about the trust. I am a victim here." Cohen didn't even look at her. He kept his eyes fixed on Darius. "But we are not done," Cohen said. "There is the matter of the transaction." He turned back to Mr. Slithers. "Mr. Slithers," Cohen said, his voice polite but edged with steel. "I believe you mentioned a deposit, a cash deposit, to secure the sale tonight." Slithers nodded vigorously, sweating profusely. "Yes," he said. $50,000. Cash. I gave it to him an hour ago. In the kitchen." He pointed at Darius. "I want it back." Slithers barked, his fear of the police momentarily overridden by his greed. "The deal is void. The title is bad. Give me my money back." All eyes turned to Darius. The police officer loosened his grip slightly, allowing Darius to stand on his own. "Well, Mr. Carter," the officer said, "you heard the man. If you return the money, it might help your case. It might downgrade the grand larceny charge. Where is the cash?" Darius looked at Slithers. He looked at Tiffany. He looked at the floor. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "Where is the money?" Darius Slithers stepped forward, his fists clenched. 50 grand, in a brown envelope. I handed it to you right before the old man came out of the basement." Darius swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed. I don't have it," he whispered. "What?" Slithers roared. "It was an hour ago." "Where is it?" "I spent it," Darius confessed, his voice a broken sob. A collective gasp went through the room. $50,000 in an hour. It seemed impossible. Where Tiffany screamed, "Where did you spend it, you idiot? I paid the caterers." Darius cried, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the sweat. They wanted cash up front because the credit card bounced. "I paid the band. I paid the florist. And what Slithers demanded, stepping into Darius' personal space, ignoring the police. "And I sent the rest to the loan shark," Darius wailed, collapsing to his knees. "Vinny. He was going to break my legs. I wired it to him. $20,000. It is gone. It is all gone." The silence that followed was the silence of absolute ruin. Darius had taken the deposit for a house he didn't own and used it to pay for a party to celebrate the theft and to pay off a gambling debt. He had dug a hole so deep he would never see the sun again. Mr. Slithers let out a string of curses that made the ladies in the room cover their ears. He lunged for Darius, grabbing him by the lapels of his tuxedo. "You stole my money, you little rat!" Slithers screamed, shaking my son like a rag doll. "I will kill you." The police officers intervened, pulling Slithers off. "That is enough," the lead officer shouted, pushing Slithers back. "You can file a civil suit, but right now Mr. Carter is coming with us." They hauled Darius to his feet. He was weeping openly now, snot running down his face, a portrait of pathetic defeat. "Dad," he blubbered, looking at me through his tears. "Dad, please. You have money. I know you do. Pay him back. Please. Vinny will kill me if he finds out I am in jail. Help me, Dad." I looked at him. I looked at the son I had held in my arms when he was a baby. The son I had put through private school. The son I had bailed out time and time again. I felt a pang of sorrow deep in my chest. But it was an old sorrow, a scar tissue pain. It wasn't fresh. The fresh feeling was clarity. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a single quarter. I tossed it onto the floor. It rolled across the hardwood and spun to a stop at Darius's feet. There, I said. That is for the phone call. Call Vinny. Tell him I said hello. Darius stared at the coin. Officer, take him away, I said, turning my head. The police dragged him toward the door. He kicked and screamed, begging, pleading, blaming everyone but himself. Tiffany stood on the stairs watching him go. She didn't move to help him. She didn't say a word. She just watched her meal ticket dragged away in handcuffs. Then she turned her eyes to me. And I saw the gears turning. I saw the survival instinct kicking in. She was already rewriting history in her head. She was already planning her next move. But she didn't know that I had one more hammer to drop, and this one was going to crush her. The handcuffs on Darius were tight, cutting into his wrists, but not nearly as deep as the knife his wife was about to stick in his back. The lead officer was reading him his rights, the monotone chant of the Miranda warning filling the ruined foyer. Darius was sagging a dead weight of defeat, sobbing quietly. But Tiffany was not sobbing. She was watching. Her eyes were darting back and forth, calculating, assessing the damage. She saw Mr. Slithers backing away. She saw the neighbors whispering. She saw the undeniable reality of the police. She realized that Darius was a sinking ship, and she was not the type of woman who went down with the vessel. She was the type who climbed onto the floating debris of her husband's life to keep her shoes dry. "Wait!" Tiffany screamed, her voice shrill and piercing enough to make the officer pause. "Wait, officer. You have the wrong person. You have the right person, but you are missing the context. I am a victim here too." She stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of innocence, her silver dress shimmering. She pointed a manicured finger at Darius, her husband of 5 years, the man she had conspired with, slept with, and plotted murder with. It was him, she shrieked, her face twisting into a mask of righteous indignation. It was all him. I wanted to call the ambulance. I begged him to let me call 911 when Winston fell. But he stopped me. He threatened me. Darius's head snapped up. His tears stopped, instantly replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock. He stared at her as if she had grown a second head. "What did you say?" he whispered. "He is a gambling addict," Tiffany yelled, turning to the police officers playing to the audience of guests who were still watching in morbid fascination. "He owes money to criminals, dangerous people, Vinny the Shark. He told me that if we didn't get the money from the house, Vinny was going to kill us both. He said we had to get rid of the old man. He forced me to help him. I was terrified for my life." She sobbed a loud, theatrical sound. She covered her face with her hands, peeking through her fingers to see if the performance was working. "He made me lock the basement door," she wailed. "He said if I let Winston out, he would beat me. He is violent, officer. Look at what he did to his own father. Imagine what he does to me behind closed doors. It was a masterclass in betrayal." She was taking the truth, twisting it, and wrapping it around Darius's neck like a noose. Darius made a sound that wasn't quite human. It was a strangled gargle of rage. He stopped slumping. He straightened up, fighting against the grip of the two officers holding him. "You lying witch!" he roared, his face turning purple. "You liar!" He lunged toward her, dragging the officers a few inches before they slammed him back against the wall. "You pushed him," Darius screamed, spitting the words at her. "You pushed him. I was standing right there. You said he was a freeloader. You said you were sick of waiting for him to die. You put your hands on his chest and you shoved him." "No!" Tiffany shouted back, stepping closer to the police, seeking their protection while stabbing her husband. "That is a lie. He is trying to frame me. He is the one who wanted the insurance money. He is the one who looked up how to fake a death certificate." "You looked it up," Darius yelled. "On my laptop. I can prove it. The search history is there. How to induce a heart attack in elderly men. How to fake a slip and fall. It is all you, Tiffany." The officers looked at each other. They didn't need to interrogate anyone. The suspects were doing the work for them, vomiting their guilt onto the marble floor. Cohen helped me up from the floor. He guided me to the velvet sofa in the center of the living room, the one Tiffany had bought with my stolen credit card. I sat down, my broken leg extended, my body throbbing with exhaustion. But my eyes were clear. I watched them. I watched the two people who were supposed to be my family, my legacy, tearing each other apart like rabid dogs in a cage. There was no love left, no loyalty, just the raw, ugly instinct of self-preservation. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. My silence was the canvas on which they painted their crimes. It was her idea to put him in the basement, Darius shouted, desperate to share the blame, desperate to pull her down into the mud with him. She said the hospital would ask too many questions. She said we needed to hide him until the bruises faded or until he died. She hired Brenda. She paid her cash. I hired Brenda because you were too weak to do it, Tiffany countered, her voice dripping with venom. You are pathetic, Darius. You couldn't even forge the signature right. I had to practice for hours to get it close enough. Aha, Cohen said softly from beside me. Admission of forgery. Officer, did you hear that? Darius yelled triumphantly. She admitted it. She forged the checks. She emptied the accounts. I just wanted to pay my debts. She wanted the jewelry. She wanted the trips. She is the greedy one. She threw the vanity away, I said quietly. It was the first time I had spoken in minutes. My voice was low, but it cut through their screaming match. Darius looked at me. Tiffany looked at me. She threw Beatrice's vanity in the dumpster. I said, looking at my son. You let her do it. You let her throw your mother's things in the trash like they were garbage. Darius flinched. For a second, the anger vanished and shame washed over his face. I tried to stop her, Dad, he mumbled. Liar, Tiffany hissed. You carried it down the stairs. You said it was ugly old junk. You said good riddance to the ghost. Darius looked at her with pure hatred. I hate you, he whispered. I wish I had never met you. The feeling is mutual, you loser, Tiffany spat. I should have married a man with money, not a man waiting for his daddy to die. The lead officer had heard enough. He signaled to his partner. Ms. Tiffany Carter, put your hands behind your back. Tiffany froze. She looked at the officer as if he had spoken in a foreign language. Excuse me, she said, her voice dropping the hysterical act and adopting a tone of icy entitlement. You cannot be serious. I am the witness here. I am the victim. You are a suspect, ma'am, the officer said, pulling a second pair of handcuffs from his belt. You just confessed to forgery, conspiracy, and accessory to attempted murder. Turn around. No. Tiffany backed away, knocking into a side table. A lamp crashed to the floor. Do not touch me. Do you know who I am? My father is a deacon. I am a member of the Junior League. You cannot arrest me like some common criminal. You are a common criminal, Tiffany, I said from the sofa. Actually, you are a very common one. Greedy, stupid, and caught. She whirled on me, her eyes blazing. This is your fault, she shrieked. You ruin everything. Why couldn't you just die? Why couldn't you just do one decent thing and die so we could have a life? Because I still have work to do, I replied, calm as the center of a hurricane, like taking out the trash. The officer grabbed her arm. She screamed a high-pitched sound of pure rage. She tried to slap him. Bad move. Within seconds, she was spun around and pinned against the wall. The handcuffs clicked. The sound was distinct, echoing the earlier sound of Darius's arrest. A matching set. I have rights, she screamed as they hauled her toward the door. I am an American citizen. I want my lawyer. I want to speak to the manager of the police. You are hurting my wrists. This dress is silk, you idiots. She kicked and thrashed, her dignity completely gone, revealing the spoiled, rotten core beneath the glitter. Darius watched her go. He watched his wife being dragged away, screaming like a banshee. He looked at the open door where the blue lights were flashing. Then he looked at me. He didn't scream. He didn't fight anymore. The fight had left him when the truth about the vanity came out. He looked at the floor, at the spilled champagne, at the ruins of the party. Dad, he said, his voice cracking into a sob. Dad, I am scared. Vinny, in prison. They will find me. I looked at him. I saw the fear. It was real. You should be scared. Darius, I said, you made a deal with a shark and you fed him your own father to pay the bill. Now you are in the water with him. Dad, please. He cried, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the snot and the sweat. Just call Cohen. Tell him to drop the charges. Tell him it was a mistake. I will go to rehab. I will change. I promise. I looked at the man who had kicked my cot in the basement. The man who had threatened to cut off my pain medication. I shook my head slowly. It is too late for promises, Darius. You broke the covenant. You broke the bond. I turned to the officer holding him. Get him out of my house, I said. Dad, Darius wailed as they pulled him toward the door. Dad, please, do not let them take me. I am your son. I am your boy. I watched him being dragged across the threshold, his heels leaving black scuff marks on the floor Beatrice had loved. I watched him disappear into the night into the back of a squad car. The door remained open, letting in the cool night air. The sirens wailed as the cars pulled away, taking the cancer that had been eating my life. The room was silent again. The guests stood around, awkward and ashamed, unsure of what to say. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. Winston, we didn't know. I looked at them, my neighbors, my friends, the people who had believed I was in Italy while I was screaming under their feet. I know, I said wearily. I know. Cohen sat down next to me on the sofa. He put a hand on my knee. It is done, Winston, he said softly. They are gone. I looked around the room at the broken door, at the shattered glass, at the stains on the floor. It was a mess, a disaster area, but for the first time in years, the air in the house felt clean. Help me up, Cohen, I said. He helped me stand. I balanced on my good leg, leaning heavily on him. I looked at the stairs that had almost killed me. I am going to need a ramp, I said. We will build one, Cohen said. We will build whatever you need. I nodded. I was broken. I was battered. I had lost my family. But I was still standing. I was Winston Carter, and I had just survived the demolition. Now it was time to rebuild. The air in the Fulton County Jail tasted like recycled breath and despair. It was a cold, metallic scent that stuck to the back of my throat, reminding me of the basement, but without the solitude. Here, the misery was communal. I sat in my wheelchair, my leg elevated, the fresh cast stark white against the gray gloom of the visitation room. My ribs were still taped tight, a corset of pain that reminded me with every breath why I was here. I wasn't here to forgive. I wasn't here to negotiate. I was here to cut the last thread. The heavy steel door on the other side of the room buzzed and clanked open. Darius walked in. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit that hung loosely on his frame. In just 1 week, he had aged 10 years. His shoulders were slumped, his skin was sallow, and his eyes darted around the room with the frantic energy of a cornered rat. He wasn't the arrogant man in the tuxedo anymore. He was an inmate. He sat down across from me at the metal table. His wrists were shackled to a bolt in the floor. He looked at my cast, then at my face. He tried to smile, but it was a gruesome grimace. Dad, he croaked. You came. I knew you would come. I didn't smile back. I placed my hands on the table, intertwining my fingers. I just looked at him. Cohen told me you refused the plea deal, I said, my voice flat. Darius leaned forward, the chains rattling. Of course I refused, he whispered urgently. They want to give me 15 years, Dad, 15 years. I can't do that time. I will die in here. You have to help me. You have to tell them it was a mistake. Tell them I was just confused. Tell them I was trying to help you. I looked at the man who had screamed at me to shut up while he brandished a candlestick. You weren't trying to help me, Darius, I said. You were trying to bury me. Darius's face crumpled. He started to cry again, that same pathetic weeping I had seen in the foyer. I know I messed up, Dad. I know. But I am your son. I am your flesh and blood. You can't let your only son rot in a cage. What about the family name? What about the Carter legacy? You always talked about the legacy, about building something that lasts. He was playing his last card, the legacy card, the dynasty. He knew how much I prided myself on the Carter name, on the reputation I had built from the dirt up in a city that didn't always want to see a black man succeed. If I stay in here, the line ends, Darius said, his voice dropping to a manipulative whisper. I am the last one. If you send me away, the Carter name dies with you. Is that what you want? After everything you worked for, to be the end of the line? I stared at him. I watched the tears track through the grime on his cheeks. I watched the desperate calculation in his eyes. He really thought that was his safety net. He thought his DNA was his immunity. I reached into the pocket of my jacket. I pulled out a long white envelope. It wasn't a legal document from Cohen. It was something personal, something I had kept in a safe deposit box for 40 years, unopened, but never forgotten. I slid the envelope across the steel table. Open it, I said. Darius looked at the envelope, then at me. He wiped his nose on his sleeve. With trembling fingers, he picked it up and tore it open. He pulled out the single sheet of paper inside. It was yellowed with age, the typewritten font faded but legible. What is this? He asked, scanning the document. A medical report. From 1983. Read the conclusion, I said. Darius squinted. His eyes moved across the page. I saw the moment he read the words. His brow furrowed. He read it again. Then he looked up at me, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly. Exclusion, he whispered. Paternity. Excluded. He looked back at the paper, shaking his head. I don't understand. What does this mean? It means, Darius, that the biology you are banking on is a lie. I said, my voice calm, steady, and colder than the grave. It means you are not my son. Darius dropped the paper as if it were burning. No, he gasped. No, that is impossible. Mom. Beatrice. She wouldn't. She did, I said. I leaned back in my wheelchair, feeling the weight of the secret lifting off my chest, a weight I had carried alone for 4 decades. I found out when you were 2 years old, I told him. You needed a blood transfusion during that appendicitis surgery. The doctors were confused. Your blood type didn't match mine. It didn't match the combination of mine and Beatrice's. It was impossible. So I ran the test. I looked at him, the memory of that day as fresh as the pain in my leg. I confronted her. She cried. She told me it was a mistake. A moment of weakness with a man from her church choir. A man who disappeared the moment she told him she was pregnant. Darius was shaking his head violently, his hands pulling against the shackles. No. You are lying. You are just saying this to hurt me. You are my dad. You have always been my dad. I was your father, Darius, I corrected him. But I was never your dad, not by blood. I leaned forward. I had a choice that day. I could have left her. I could have put you up for adoption. I could have walked away and started over. But I didn't. I looked at you, a little innocent boy who had done nothing wrong, and I decided to love you. I decided that nurture was stronger than nature. I decided to raise you as a Carter. My voice hardened. I gave you my name. I gave you my home. I gave you my heart. I buried the secret because I didn't want you to grow up thinking you were a mistake. I wanted you to feel like a king. And how did you repay that, Darius? Darius was sobbing now, not the manipulative tears from before, but deep guttural sounds of a man whose identity was disintegrating. I didn't know, he wailed. I didn't know. You didn't need to know, I snapped. You just needed to be a decent human being. But you weren't, were you? You stole from me. You lied to me. You tried to kill me. I pointed at the yellowed paper on the table. For years I watched you. I saw the greed. I saw the laziness. And I wondered, was it me? Did I fail you? Was I too hard? Was I too soft? Or was it him, the stranger in your blood, the man who abandoned you before you were born? I shook my head. But then I watched you on that staircase. I watched you look at my broken body and calculate your inheritance. And I realized it didn't matter whose blood you had. You are rotten, Darius. You are broken in a way that cannot be fixed. I pulled the envelope back, taking the paper. I folded it carefully and put it back in my pocket. You talked about the Carter legacy, I said. You asked if I wanted the line to end. I looked him dead in the eye. The Carter line is safe, Darius, because you were never part of it. My legacy is my work, my buildings, my reputation. It is not you. Darius slumped forward, his forehead hitting the metal table with a dull thud. He howled, a sound of pure anguish. He had lost his freedom. He had lost his money. And now he had lost his very self. He was no longer the heir to a kingdom. He was just a bastard in a cage. Dad, please, he moaned. Don't leave me. I have nothing. I am nobody. I unlocked the brakes on my wheelchair. I turned myself toward the door. You are right, I said over my shoulder. You are nobody, and I owe you nothing. Not protection, not money, and certainly not my name. I rolled toward the door. Cohen was waiting for me outside, watching through the glass. He opened the door for me. Dad, Darius screamed behind me. Dad, wait. Who am I? Who is my father? I stopped in the doorway. I didn't turn around. Does it matter? I asked. You are exactly who you chose to be. A criminal. I rolled out of the room. The heavy steel door slammed shut behind me, cutting off his screams. The silence of the hallway washed over me. I felt lighter. The phantom limb of my son, the one I had tried to save for so long, was finally gone. The wound had been cauterized. Cohen looked at me. He didn't say anything. He just took the handles of my wheelchair and pushed me down the long corridor toward the exit, toward the sun. I was childless. I was alone. But I was clean. The rot was gone. And for the first time in 40 years, I didn't have to carry a lie. 3 days after I left Darius in that steel cage, the doorbell rang. It wasn't the polite chime of a neighbor. It was persistent demanding. I was sitting in the living room the new ramp Cohen had installed, allowing me to navigate the first floor in my wheelchair. The house was quiet now. The party debris was gone, cleaned by a professional crew, but the stain of betrayal still hung in the air like smoke. I checked the security monitor. It was Tiffany. She wasn't wearing the silver sequined dress anymore. She was wearing a white sundress, modest, demure, the kind of thing a Sunday school teacher would wear. Her hair was pulled back. She looked pale, fragile. It was a costume. Another performance. I pressed the intercom button. "Go away, Tiffany," I said, my voice scratching through the speaker. "You are violating your bail conditions. You are not supposed to be within 500 feet of me." "Please, Winston," she sobbed into the camera, looking up with big, watery eyes. "Please, just 5 minutes. I need to talk to you. It is about the baby." I paused. The baby. I buzzed the gate. I wanted to hear this. I wanted to see how low she would dig. She walked up the driveway, not with the confident strut she used to have, but with a hesitant shuffle. She entered the house when I unlocked the door, looking around nervously as if expecting the police to jump out from behind the curtains. She saw me in the wheelchair and fell to her knees right there in the entryway. She clasped her hands together in a pose of prayer. "Oh, Winston, I am so sorry," she wailed. "I have been in a living hell. The jail. It is awful. My parents had to put up their house to get me out. I have lost everything." "Get up, Tiffany," I said coldly, rolling back to keep my distance. "I don't like dirt on my floor." She scrambled up, wiping her eyes. She walked into the living room, her hands hovering over her stomach. A protective gesture. Calculated. "Winston, you have to drop the charges," she said, her voice trembling. "Not for me, but for your grandchild." I looked at her flat stomach. "My grandchild," I repeated. "Yes." She breathed, nodding eagerly. "I found out the morning of the party. I was going to tell Darius, but everything happened. I am pregnant, Winston. You are going to be a grandfather. You cannot send the mother of your grandson to prison. You cannot let him be born behind bars." I watched her. I watched the way she touched her belly, the way she tried to make her eyes shine with maternal instinct. It was a good performance. Oscar-worthy. But I knew something she didn't. I knew Darius had been sterile since he was 20. A bout of mumps he had as a child. He never told her. He was too ashamed. He let her believe they were trying. Let her believe it just wasn't happening. So either she was lying, or the baby wasn't a Carter. "You are lying, Tiffany," I said simply. Her eyes widened. "I am not. I swear on my life." "Your life is not worth much right now," I said. "And neither is your word. Darius cannot have children, Tiffany. He never could." The color drained from her face faster than water from a cracked pipe. She froze her hand, still clutching her stomach. The lie evaporated, instantly replaced by the ugly truth of her cornered reality. She dropped the act. Her posture changed. She straightened up, the demure daughter-in-law vanishing to reveal the viper beneath. Her eyes narrowed into slits. "Fine," she spat, stepping closer. "So there is no baby. Who cares? You still have to drop the charges." "And why would I do that?" I asked, leaning back in my chair, crossing my arms over my chest. "Because if you don't," she hissed, her voice dropping to a low, threatening growl, "I will destroy you." I raised an eyebrow. "You already tried to kill me, Tiffany. You tried to steal my house. You tried to lock me in a basement. What is left?" "My reputation," she said, a cruel smile playing on her lips. "Or rather yours." She pulled out her phone. "I will go to the press," she said. "I will go to social media. I will tell them you are a predator. I will tell them you touched me. I will tell them you harassed me for years, and that is why Darius hated you. That is why we wanted to leave. I will say the push on the stairs was self-defense, because you tried to force yourself on me." The room went cold. It was a nuclear threat. An accusation like that in today's world, even without proof, could destroy a man's legacy forever. It would taint everything I had built. It would turn the victim into a villain. "You wouldn't dare," I whispered. "Watch me," she challenged, holding the phone up ready to record. "Who are they going to believe? A crying, traumatized young woman, or a rich old man who held her husband prisoner?" "I will cry, Winston. I will cry so hard the whole world will hate you. Drop the charges, right now. Or I hit record. I looked at her. I looked at the depth of her depravity. She was willing to use the worst kind of lie to save her own skin. She was willing to destroy my soul to keep her freedom. I didn't panic. I didn't beg. Instead, I reached for the remote control on the side table. "You are too late, Tiffany," I said. What she asked, frowning. "Turn around," I commanded. I pressed the power button. The massive flat-screen TV above the fireplace flickered to life. It was tuned to the local news channel. Breaking news banners were scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Tiffany turned slowly. The anchor was speaking, her face serious and grave. "Shocking footage released today by the Fulton County District Attorney's Office regarding the attempted murder of prominent architect Winston Carter." Tiffany gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. On the screen, a grainy but high-definition video began to play. It was black and white. It was from a high angle looking down the staircase of my home. I had installed those cameras 5 years ago, hidden in the smoke detectors, not to spy on them, but for security. I had forgotten about them until Cohen reminded me. The cloud storage held everything. On the screen, Tiffany and Darius stood at the top of the stairs. The audio was crisp. "You are nothing but a useless freeloader," the Tiffany on the screen screamed. The real Tiffany in the living room started to shake. "Get out," the Winston on the screen said. Then the moment, the shove. It played out in slow motion. Tiffany lunging her arms, extending her face, twisted in rage. My body flying backward, the sickening tumble down the stairs. Then the aftermath. Darius standing there doing nothing. Tiffany smoothing her shirt. "He slipped the TV," Tiffany said. "Do you hear me?" He slipped. The news anchor reappeared on the screen. "Police say this video, along with audio recordings made by the victim, contradicts the initial claims of an accident. Tiffany Carter and her husband Darius are facing life sentences." I muted the TV. Tiffany was staring at the screen, paralyzed. She was watching her own soul being exposed to millions of people. There was no spinning this. There was no lie that could cover the visual evidence of her hands on my chest pushing me to my death. Her threat of sexual harassment evaporated. If she tried to say it was self-defense, the video showed clearly that I was backing away, that I was not a threat, that she was the aggressor. She turned back to me. Her eyes were wide, filled with a terror that was finally real. You recorded it," she whispered. "I recorded everything I said, every conversation, every threat, every lie." She fell to her knees again, but this time it wasn't an act. Her legs just gave out. She crawled toward me, dragging herself across the rug, grabbing the wheels of my chair. "Winston, please," she sobbed hysterically. "Please, I will do anything. I will leave the country. I will sign a confession. Just tell them to stop showing it. My parents, my friends, everyone will see." "Everyone has already seen," I said, looking down at her with zero pity. "It is trending, Tiffany. You are famous, just like you always wanted." She wailed, a sound of pure despair, burying her face in her hands. "You have no way out," I said, my voice hard as granite. "There is no deal to be made. There is no blackmail that works. You stepped into the arena with a lion and you thought you were fighting a lamb." I picked up my phone. I dialed 911. "Yes," I said into the receiver, my eyes never leaving Tiffany's sobbing form. "I have an intruder. A woman who has violated her bail conditions. She is in my living room. She is threatening me. Yes, send the officers. The same ones who were here last week. They know the way." Tiffany looked up. Her makeup was smeared, her face blotchy. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this?" "Because," I replied, hanging up the phone. "You tried to take my life. You tried to take my dignity. And now you are trying to take my name. I am simply taking out the trash. Out." Welcome to reality, Tiffany. I wheeled myself away, turning my back on her, leaving her weeping on the floor of the house she thought she owned, waiting for the sirens that were already wailing in the distance. The game was over, and she had lost everything. The house on Sycamore Street sold in 4 days. It was a cash offer, 30% over asking price, from a developer who wanted the land, not the memories. I signed the papers in Cohen's office, my hand steady, my signature ending with the sharp upward loop that Darius had failed to forge. I didn't feel sadness as I handed over the keys. I felt lighter. I was trading a mausoleum for a future. I didn't keep a dime of the money. Every cent from the sale, along with a significant portion of my recovered assets, went into a new account. Not a personal account. A foundation. The Beatrice Carter Foundation for Elder Justice. Cohen sat across from me, his pen hovering over the incorporation documents. "Are you sure, Winston?" he asked, peering over his glasses. "This is a lot of money. You could travel. You could buy a yacht. You could retire in luxury." "I am retiring in luxury," I said, leaning back in my leather chair, the pain in my leg finally starting to fade into a dull, manageable ache. "But luxury isn't about boats, Cohen. It is about purpose." I pointed at the papers. My wife Beatrice was a woman of immense kindness. She would have been horrified by what happened to me, but she also would have been the first one to fight back. This foundation, it is her sword. The foundation's mission was simple: to provide high-powered legal defense for seniors facing financial exploitation and physical abuse from family members. We would hire the best lawyers, the best investigators, the best forensic accountants. We would be the cavalry for the people who had been left to rot in basements and nursing homes. We would be Protocol Omega for everyone. I spent the next 6 months building it. I was 73 now, but I felt 30 again. I was back in the game, designing structures not of steel and concrete, but of justice and protection. I hired Brenda, the nurse who had delivered my watch, as the head of our intake department. She had a nose for lies and a street-smart toughness that no degree could buy. She took the job with tears in her eyes and a promise to never let another hawk fall. My living situation changed too. I moved out of the suburbs, away from the quiet streets that hid dark secrets. I bought a penthouse in downtown Atlanta. It was on the 45th floor of a building I had helped design 20 years ago. It had floor-to-ceiling windows, 24-hour security, and a concierge who knew my name and my coffee order. It wasn't a lonely tower. I turned the spare bedrooms into a library and a card room. I invited my old friends from the engineering firm, guys I hadn't seen in years because I had been too busy playing the role of the doting father. We met every Tuesday for poker and scotch. We talked about politics, about architecture, about the old days. We laughed. Genuine belly-shaking laughter that I hadn't felt in a decade, but I kept track of the other side of the equation too. The trial of Darius and Tiffany was swift and brutal. The evidence was overwhelming. The video of the push, the audio of the conspiracy, the financial trail of the theft. It was a tidal wave that drowned their defense. Darius tried to play the victim until the end. He cried on the stand, claiming he was coerced, claiming he was addicted, claiming he was just a confused son trying to help. But the jury saw the video. They saw the moment he stood at the top of the stairs and watched me fall. They saw the cold calculation in his eyes. He was sentenced to 15 years in a maximum security federal prison. No parole for at least 12. The judge called his actions a moral bankruptcy that defies comprehension. Tiffany fared no better. Her attempts to paint herself as a battered wife crumbled under the weight of her own recorded words. The jury saw her for what she was, the architect of the crime. She received 10 years for attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud. When they were led out of the courtroom in shackles, they didn't look at me. They looked at the floor at their feet, at the nothingness that awaited them. They were ghosts. I visited Darius once, just once. 6 months into his sentence. He was thin, pale, his head shaved. He sat behind the plexiglass partition, refusing to pick up the phone at first. When he finally did, his voice was a flat monotone. "Why are you here?" he asked. "To gloat." "No," I said. "To say goodbye." He looked at me, his eyes dead. "You ruined me," he whispered. "You ruined yourself, Darius," I replied. "I just refused to pay for the demolition." I stood up. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel hate. I felt nothing. He was a stranger. A bad investment I had finally written off. I walked out of the prison and into the bright afternoon sun. I got into my car where Cohen was waiting. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready," I said. We drove back to the city, back to the skyline I had helped build. Tonight, I stood on the balcony of my penthouse. The wind was brisk, whipping my coat around my legs. I leaned on the railing, looking down at the grid of lights below. Millions of people, millions of stories. I held a glass of single malt scotch in my hand. It was smooth, warm, smoky. I was alone. My wife was gone. My son was gone. My old house was gone. But I was safe. I was free. and I was strong. I raised my glass to the stars to Beatrice. "We did it, Bea," I whispered. "The foundation is open. The bad guys are gone. And I am still standing." I took a sip. The city lights twinkled back at me, a vast ocean of possibilities. I turned away from the railing and walked back inside, where the warmth and the light and the future were waiting. The door slid shut behind me with a solid, reassuring click. Protocol Omega was deactivated. Protocol life had just begun. The silence in my penthouse is not empty. It is heavy with peace. It is filled with the hum of the city 45 floors below, a city I helped build with steel and concrete and sweat. I sit here in my leather chair, a glass of single malt scotch resting on the side table, and I watch the lights of Atlanta blinking like a million watchful eyes. For the first time in a decade, I do not have to lock my bedroom door. I do not have to hide my wallet. I do not have to sleep with one eye open, wondering if the people I share a roof with are planning my funeral. Freedom is a strange thing. We often think of it as the ability to do whatever we want. But real freedom, the kind that settles in your bones and lets you breathe deep, is the ability to say no. No to abuse. No to manipulation. No to the toxic expectations of people who claim to love you only when your hand is reaching for your checkbook. I have spent a lot of time thinking about Darius in these quiet hours. I think about the little boy with the scraped knees. I think about the teenager who needed help with his math homework. And I think about the man who raised a candlestick to crush my skull. It is easy to blame it all on greed. It is easy to say that Tiffany corrupted him or that the gambling addiction twisted his mind. But that is the coward's way out. That is the lie we parents tell ourselves to sleep at night. The truth is much harder to swallow. The truth is that I handed him the shovel he used to dig his own grave. I look back at the years of bailouts, the credit card bills I paid without asking questions, the jobs I secured for him that he quit 3 months later, the times I looked the other way when cash went missing from my dresser. I told myself I was being a good father. I told myself I was protecting him. But I wasn't protecting him. I was crippling him. I was teaching him that actions have no consequences. I was teaching him that no matter how big the mess, Daddy would always be there with a broom and a checkbook. I created a world for him where gravity didn't exist, where he could jump off cliffs, and I would always be there to catch him. So when I finally stepped back, when I finally said, "I am not catching you anymore," he didn't learn to fly. He decided to push me off the cliff instead. There is a terrifying moment in the life of every parent who has an adult child like Darius. It is the moment you realize that the monster in front of you has your last name. You look into their eyes and you search for the innocence you remember, but all you see is hunger. A hunger that will never be satisfied until it has consumed everything you have. Your money, your peace, your life. We blind ourselves. We wear masks of denial because the alternative is too painful to bear. We say, "Oh, he is just going through a rough patch." We say she just has high standards. We make excuses for their cruelty because admitting that our children are bad people feels like admitting that we failed. But the greatest failure is not raising a flawed child. The greatest failure is letting that child destroy you. I visited the Winston Carter Foundation yesterday. Brenda was there running the intake desk with the efficiency of a general. She showed me the files, hundreds of them, faces of men and women my age, people who worked hard their whole lives only to be stripped bare by the people they gave birth to. I saw a woman who was evicted from her own home because her son forged her signature on a reverse mortgage. I saw a man whose daughter stopped buying his heart medication so she could afford a new car. They all had the same look in their eyes, the look of betrayal, the look of someone who woke up one day and realized they were sleeping with the enemy. I told them my story. I told them about the basement, about the hunger, about the recording, and I told them about the moment I decided to fight back. You cannot save someone who is drowning if they are trying to pull you under, I told them. You have to let go. You have to kick away. It goes against every instinct in your heart. It feels like murder, but it is not murder. It is survival. Tiffany sent me a letter from prison last week. She didn't ask for money this time. She didn't threaten me. She just asked why. Why I had to be so cruel. Why I had to humiliate them so publicly. I burned the letter. She still doesn't understand. She thinks I did it for revenge. She thinks I did it because I was angry. She doesn't understand that I did it for justice. Justice is not always soft. Justice is not always polite. Sometimes justice is a sledgehammer. Sometimes you have to tear down the whole house to get rid of the rot. I am 73 years old. My leg still aches when it rains. My ribs still twinge when I laugh too hard. But I am stronger than I have ever been. I have found a new family. Not one of blood, but one of spirit. Cohen, Brenda, the people at the foundation. We are a tribe of survivors. We look out for each other. We respect each other. We don't keep score. And that is what I want you to understand. Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, loyalty, and basic humanity. I spent 40 years building a legacy for a son I thought would carry my name, only to realize I was feeding a viper. We often blind ourselves to the toxicity of our loved ones, making excuses for their greed until it pushes us down the stairs. True power doesn't come from controlling others or inheriting wealth you didn't earn. It comes from the dignity of standing on your own 2 feet and having the courage to cut off the hand that hurts you, even if that hand belongs to your own child. Protect yourself first so you can truly love the right people. Do not let guilt be your handcuffs. Do not let tradition be your jail cell. If you are sitting there right now, feeling that knot in your stomach every time your phone rings, if you are hiding your bank statements, if you are walking on eggshells in your own home, wake up. Look at them. Really look at them. Strip away the memories of the cute toddler. Strip away the graduation photos. Look at the adult standing in front of you. Do they respect you? Do they help you? Or do they just take? I waited until I was falling down the stairs to see the truth. Do not wait that long. The stairs are steep and the landing is hard. You have the power. You always had the power. You just forgot how to use it. You built the house. You earned the money. It is yours. Reclaim it. Protocol Omega wasn't just a computer program. It was a mindset. It was the decision that I matter, that my life has value beyond what I can provide for others. I finish my scotch. The amber liquid is warm in my chest. I stand up and walk to the window. The reflection staring back at me is old. The beard is gray. The face is lined. But the eyes are clear. I am Winston Carter. I am not a victim. I am not a stepping stone. I am the architect of my own life. And from this height, the view is magnificent. What about you? Are you seeing the cracks in your foundation? Are you ignoring the termites because you are afraid of what you might find if you tear down the drywall? Tell me your story in the comments. Have you ever had to make the hard choice to cut off a family member? Have you ever had to choose between your love for your child and your own survival? I want to hear from you. Because silence is where they win. Silence is the basement. Speak up, stand up, and never let anyone push you down the stairs of your own life. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who might be trapped in their own basement right now waiting for a sign. Be that sign. Until next time, stay strong, stay vigilant, and remember the hawk is always watching.